Welcome to Mysteries, Monsters, and Mayhem.
I'm Shannon Lawrence.
And I'm MB Partlow.
Quick content warning before we get started. This podcast may contain language and disturbing content, so enter at your own risk.
Hi. Hello. I'm just going to laugh through this whole thing.
We were just having an inappropriate conversation before we started, so we could have just started with like dead silence. Like, wait, what do we talk about now?
Every conversation we have has some inappropriateness to it for some reason. And it's a slim line between what we will and won't talk about.
Well, that's true.
Here.
Right.
But we were talking about how we refer to recording this live or on the air. It's neither.
It's no.
But when I used to do Facebook Lives for the shop, people would come in and be like, I saw you on TV. And I would laugh and I'd be like, thank you. And I'm thinking to myself, it's fucking Facebook. I'm not the news anchor. I'm not the weather girl. I'm not a talk show host.
I'm not getting the big bucks for this shit.
I don't get paid an extra dime. I get a couple of free drinks and I get a lot of free clothes. But yeah, I'm like, I was not on TV. Did you realize you were watching this on your computer or your phone? No.
Actually, no. Yeah. Right. This is not live. It's a pre-recorded and really loosely edited. Because we don't got time for that. So,
ain't nobody got time.
You get what you get, and you don't get upset.
Yep,
you do, and then you skedaddle, and I don't know it. So it doesn't bother me, I guess. That's terrible. I would care if nobody listened.
Yes. I would care if nobody listened. But so, what did you do? Anything exciting or noteworthy
Since
this
the
week?
last?
Well, I was gonna.
This week?
Who the fuck can
God,
remember?
no, I worked. I worked and worked and worked. No, but I went to Mexico for we were there for my birthday.
Even though you were
which went terribly.
You had Montezuma's revenge.
Terribly askew.
Severely.
Yeah, it was just legit. It was like neurovirus. It was food poisoning. And the weird thing is, it was from the night that we went to like a pasta place. So it wasn't even... So yes, I got violently, desperately ill. I'm down weight. And let me tell you, I normally gain all that weight back like 2 days after I feel better.
Right.
Nope.
Ooh.
Like I was mad sick and I'm still having like weird stomach issues from it. And it's been weeks. But
yeah, sometimes it does. It takes a while.
Yep. The night leading into my birthday, I was just up and throwing up for the first time in almost 20 years.
Wow.
Basically. Yeah. Last time I threw up was morning sickness.
Oh, damn.
Because I am incredibly stubborn and have great control over my body and will just stay sick longer to not throw up because it's violent for me. It's extremely violent. And, did that and did it for 24 hours straight, which is also a never for me.
Oh my
Even
God.
like when I had a stomach bug, it would be like a couple hours and then done. It's all gone. Nope. I'm pretty sure I threw up organs.
Oh,
so
toenails.
Right? Well, what is that?
No, there comes a point where you are kind of like, I wonder what that was. And then there comes a point where you don't care anymore. You just want it to stop.
I was like, how am I not running out of food? Like, how am I not? It was terrible. It was really gross. And, and then I was passed out. Like, I legit just slept all day, except when I would wake up to run out and throw up, because there was only an external bathroom up on the bedroom floor. And I'm like, so everybody staying anywhere around here is hearing me be sick. I'm so sorry. All those people. So yes. And then I spent like the rest of my vacation, this was about halfway through, not able to eat. So I lived off electrolyte drinks and eventually the last couple of days, soup at an Asian restaurant. It was really good soup.
The first thing you can hold down after something like that is divine. It doesn't matter.
I know. I was like, this is amazing. And I might come back here and go there for that soup and be like, what is this shit? What is this?
This is not as magical as it was before.
Yes. And then our credit card also got stolen that day.
Fun. You just had all the things.
Yes. And then I got randomly searched getting on the plane. I got pulled out of line because it's on your ticket, pre-printed, pre-planned.
Oh.
That, hey, these 3 S's on your ticket mean that we have to pull you out.
Ugh.
So got searched, got these pieces of like some sort of paper, sticky paper rubbed all over me, and had to pull out everything in my bag, had to open every zipper, had to have all that tested.
Didn't have to strip, did you?
No. They probably would have just made me do it right there. But because this was just in front of everybody that they were doing, I'd take off my shoes and stuff like that. But that's it. But yeah, I then got on my plane for my window seat, and there was no window. Oh. It was just a wall. So I was all, well, it's a good thing that I enjoy Mexico in general, because I think I might be completely off Mexico now if that were not it. But the funny thing about it is that we finally were able to go back out for breakfast, and I got like a smoothie to just see if I could get that down. And the waitress was like, where are you guys? Because we were going there every day. And we're like, well, I had food poisoning or whatever. She was like, sometimes tourists just can't handle the spice here. And I was like, bitch.
That was not.
I was vomiting from both ends, and the last thing I ate was pasta. It had nothing to do with spice. Actually, that was not the last. That was the last thing I ate before I got sick. I was sick for 24 hours in a different way before the vomiting started. We'll just say.
Yes.
And the last thing I ate was Mediterranean. Well, it was Greek. And I was like, ooh, I do not enjoy that a second time at all. That is not a friendly pre-vomit food there.
No. Is there a friendly pre-vomit food?
No, but I have been like, I don't want hummus. I don't want to see any hummus. I don't want to see anything.
What was
a garbanzo bean? Nope.
My brother-in-law told me never throw up. What the hell was it? Spanish rice.
Really?
Apparently, when it goes out through your nose, it's not
unpleasant.
I think expelling any solid matter through your nose, any kind of food. I did once watch someone do it because he laughed. He was eating and he started laughing and he shot pad thai out of his nose.
Jesus. Oh, wow.
I couldn't eat pad thai for I would say probably 5 years. You're sitting at lunch and all of a sudden there's pad thai coming out of somebody's nose.
Like, nope. Not going to eat anything that looks like that ever.
No.
Well, that's just like what the people do post sometimes. And they're like, what's the alcohol that you can't drink anymore because you overdrink it? And I'm like, well, I've never drunk to that excess. Even when I was drinking. Oh, no. Even when I was drinking a lot, I did not get hangovers. I didn't black out. I didn't get so sick I threw up. Like, that was just not a thing for me. But I had a really high tolerance, astoundingly, because I was like 120 pounds. But whiskey I can't stand because a friend got sick to that point. And when you drink to that excess, you can smell it out of their pores.
Yep.
And of course, she was vomiting in my presence, and we had to go to the ER to get her stomach pumped and all that good stuff. So whiskey, oh God, no. Can't handle it.
For me, it's Southern Comfort. Oh. And I hadn't thought about Southern Comfort in years. And it was from doing shots. Way too many shots. Because I used to enjoy a Scarlett O'Hara, which is Southern Comfort and cranberry juice and a twist of lime. Because it's a good balance because Southern Comfort's so sweet and cranberry juice is so tart. So I hadn't thought about it in years. Southern Comfort's pretty easy to avoid. And then I went over to brother-in-law and sister-in-law's house, and they had made Ben had made Jell-O shooters with Southern Comfort, and I don't even know what he put with it. I don't know what kind of Jell-O he put it in. I glimpsed the label, the bottle on the counter out of the corner of my eye, and I was like, huh! I was like, oh my God. I was like, don't bring those anywhere near me, because I can't. I said, apparently, my body remembers.
Wow.
Yeah. No.
Speaking of which, since I already had the plans in Mexico, I missed my aunt. My aunt died of breast cancer returning. And
I'm sorry.
Well, it was like a month ago or something. So thank you.
I'm still sorry.
I am sad, but we knew it was coming because her cancer came back she made it about a year. She wasn't supposed to. She's very stubborn also. But
that doesn't run in your family.
No, I know. And so at our memorial, because at my grandma's memorial too, her mom it was Jello shots. They do Jello shots at their services or whatever. And so they were doing that. And I was like, I have to go find a Jello shot. I intended to find a Jello shot down there. I figured there's a place called Senor Frogs. Senor Frogs. I hate it. But I was like, I will go there and they will probably have some Jello shots or something. So, but that was a couple days after.
Oh.
Not the morning sickness. Oh, fuck no. The illness, so I could not do a Jello shot. So I still owe her one.
You'll get there.
But yeah, I was like, I'm not making. I was like, if I were to post asking people, like, is there someone here that does Jello shots? I know from some of the people on my page, I would fucking get, because people are there to piss me off sometimes. I would get, you can make your own Jello shots, and be like, I am not going to make that many Jello shots.
I
Fuck
understand.
Off. Also,
I was going to say, I would make, if you can't find them, I will make you Jello. I will make you Jello shots, and I'll do something with the rest of them.
Okay. Yeah, I also never made Jello shots for it. Wasn't a thing. I pretty much skipped that fun party element.
I was drinking. The Jello shot queen of Virginia Beach. Because I know how to make them good.
I've only had them, I think, once, and I was a full-ass adult with kids at that point.
So at one point, as a grown-ass adult, Joe and I used to belong to this dinner club, and somehow the word Jello shots came up. So every month we went to a different place for dinner, and the group could be 6 or 8 people, it could be 20 people. You just had to RSVP in time, and we would all meet at this restaurant. Well, we decided one year, instead of going out in December to a restaurant, we would go to, one couple offered to host us, and we would do a potluck at their house, and people started talking about Jello shots. So there was a Jello shot contest, and way too many of us brought, because you couldn't just take one kind, you had to take like 3. And so when you have 4 people making 3 kinds of Jello shots, and now they do pudding shots.
I don't like it. And I love pudding.
I hate pudding. And I was like, I will not be touching those, because pudding. There's milk. No.
Pudding.
But yeah, so that was that first dinner club Christmas party was a drunken debauchery.
Because that's the thing, when you go and somebody has Jello shots at the thing, they always have like every color, which means they made like multiple Jello boxes.
Yes.
Right? At least like 3 normally.
Well, and I'm very picky. I'm like, you got to curate what flavor of liquor with what flavor of Jello, and you can't make them too strong.
What if I make soda Jello shots? I don't think that would set. I don't think it would set with soda because it's fizzy.
I think you can.
Oh, if you flattened it, maybe?
No, but I think you can because they make it with champagne or ginger ale.
Okay.
So I think you can. I haven't tried it.
Interesting.
And I also think Carefree Bar and Grill might have Jello shots.
Really? Okay.
I may be misremembering, but I was reading an ad for them, and it said something about home of the $1 Jello shots.
Huh. I guess if I'm going to go somewhere, then I'd rather give them that business, right?
Yes.
And do my Jello shot.
I had lunch there not too long ago. Oh my God, it was good.
I still see it come up in the Colorado Springs Foodies group, which, by the way, has been nothing but this business is closing, and then 10 different people have to post that particular restaurant is closing because the algorithms didn't show them somebody already posted it, and then 15 people have to post, let's focus on the positive, recommend a restaurant, and then I saw like multiple of those, and then I was like, you guys are killing me. Like, do a search and see if somebody posted this already.
And I did appreciate a couple of people who are in the business posted like an analysis of why people were closing.
Yes.
And one actually had facts and figures.
Yeah. There was interesting. I was like, having done the bookkeeping at a restaurant and stuff, like it's hard for me sometimes not to explain what some of the financial issues are there. And the problem is some of it's very unpopular, but they don't know, because I'm not saying it's bad that we did this, that the minimum wage, how it went up, and they did it over several years, and it went up each year. That was deeply impactful to a small business.
Well, yeah.
And that meant prices having to go up for the food, but at the same time, then prices were going up for the vendors and stuff. And so, yeah, like that shit hits hard. And when that all is hitting, a lot of people can't afford to stay in business.
I was surprised at some of the people, not everybody, but I was surprised Munchies was going out. Have I ever been there? I have not.
I've been there once, and I'm sure the food is good if you don't bring fried food home and eat it when it's been in a box.
Yep.
So, like, they had waffles that looked really good. I was surprised that was closing because it seemed popular, but maybe they were just really good about getting the word out.
Mark Anthony's Pretzels.
Oh, yeah. There's Drifters is the one that we're sad about. Oh. At the same time, they hadn't opened their lobby up after COVID. Oh. So that's why we didn't go back.
Oh.
Because they were We Make Your Burgers Fresh place, which is awesome, which was good, right? And they used to use the local, what is it, Ranch Foods?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Ranch Food Direct.
They used to use that meat, and then it got too expensive, and then they got rid of that. And so that kind of pissed people off too, but you know, they had to do what they had to do. But him not opening up the lobby was kind of a killer because they drive through in a place where they're cooking each burger fresh.
Takes forever, doesn't it?
Forever. And it would be wrapped out because it was popular, but a lot of people posted, I drive by, see the line, and keep going, and go to like Wendy's up the street or whatever. And then In-N-Out and Whataburger opened up the street. So his is pretty... Now, those are the reasons, bud. But
yeah.
And the downtown ones, it was because so many people were like, because I won't pay to park to go to a restaurant downtown.
And then there are people who are like, well, you'll pay this much for your coffee, but you won't pay $3 to park. It's like...
It's the principle, motherfucker.
And
it is for me.
It's hard to find parking, and people are like, oh, there are parking garages. And I'm like, okay, in my case, I am a woman who is frequently like, I want to go meet friends. I'm by myself. So I don't want to park 8,000 miles away, nor do I want to park on the 4th fucking floor of a dark parking garage. Yes, I know they're lit.
Right.
But I don't want to walk up there.
But they're still pretty dim.
Yeah, but I don't want to walk up there by myself.
Right. So unless you're like talking to your friends ahead of time going, hey, let's all park at this parking garage, which many of them will be like, how about no?
Or if you can carpool.
Yeah.
Which is
Yeah. I mean, there are solutions, but are they solutions that make sense for everybody all the time in a perfect world?
Yeah.
So, but, and our meters used to be, only until 6 on weekdays, and on weekends it was free parking.
Yes.
And then it changed to, now it goes to 10 p.m. So you can't even have a late dinner.
And you pay on both weekend days.
Yep. So I was like, no, once that started, like, we just avoided downtown. Because, first of all, we're not downtown people either. So, whatever. Those restaurants were never going to be a big draw for us.
I would. There are places down there I think I would go if I could walk. I don't want to live down there, but if I could. And what one of the people pointed out who was responding to one of these columns, he's like, what you're all not talking about is what the city is trying not to talk about, which is the issue with the homeless, which, again, that's another reason to not want to walk by yourself in the dark, and you don't, and nobody wants to be accosted.
So I went to high school here in Acacia Park, which is a park, a little park downtown with a playground, and that has performances and, festivals and stuff sometimes. And Acacia Park was like where the teenagers went, but also where the teenagers went to get alcohol, because they'd go to somebody who was unhoused and say, hey, you can keep the rest of the money if you buy me alcohol. But also, we all knew it was dangerous. And I have, as an adult, still had like a group of men shouting things at me and then follow me to an event I was going to.
That's not
which
pleasant.
Luckily was not even a block from where they caught attention or whatever. And this can totally happen with housed as well as unhoused folks, right? But yes, it is a safety issue, and you're not against unhoused folks and helping them if you also have to be afraid. There are many that are working. I was shocked to learn how many people who are unhoused have jobs. And that's the thing that I like to use, like point out to people who are being dicks about the homeless. I've bought food for them and, given money or whatever when downtown, but it is also a risk factor.
When I worked downtown, which was a hot minute ago, we had there was some empty lot that we had parking in. I worked for the Independent, and there was a group of guys who started hanging out in the parking lot, in the corner of the parking lot, drinking.
Yeah.
I didn't care.
Right.
They just were sitting around having a drink. They started getting aggressive. And that's when I went in and I said, we're done. And we had to call, I can't remember. I don't believe we called the police. I think we called whoever owned the lot and said, you have to deal with this.
Yeah.
Because I would have if they had wanted to just sit there and drink, and I don't care if they were singing and tap dancing.
Right.
I probably would have given them money for that. But
that's the thing, though. When any group of people loitering, housed or unhoused,
yes,
that is drinking, and is going to possibly get aggressive and belligerent and dangerous.
I would never speculate in that particular group if they were unhoused or not. Because I'm thinking back on the appearance of them, and I don't believe they were.
Right.
They just were looking for a place to...
There's people who cruise the Ave. There's people who do this. There's always predators downtown too, right? And so, no, I don't want to go down there and have to find parking and walk blocks to get to wherever I'm going at night. And
here's scary. We had an Uber driver who was a predator.
Ugh.
Because he told us why. Why would he do this? Joe and I got a ride home from an Oktoberfest. We planned ahead, Ubered there, and then Ubered home. And the guy who took us home was talking about how he was like, oh, yeah, you guys were lucky I was on this side of town. Usually at this time of night on a Friday and a Saturday, I'm downtown. And I said, oh, a lot of people. And he goes, yeah, a lot of women, a lot of drunk women. You'd be surprised.
I really cannot stand being around a lot of drunk women.
Well, he was talking about, you would not believe how many drunk women will say to you, what can I do so I don't have to pay for this ride?
Yeah.
And I was like, maybe you shouldn't be creeping around taking advantage of drunk young women.
Yes, so don't accept it. What can I do? Not a thing.
Oh no, but you could tell that was a bonus for him. Yeah. That was a job perk, and I was like, I'm sorry, we were not young and drunk enough for you.
Right?
Ugh, he gave off a major creepy vibe.
Speaking of, so my company does harm reduction in Arizona. And, that's things like distributing clean needles, giving out Narcan, which is something that can stop an overdose for specific kinds of drugs, and doing medical testing. And we give out like packs that have stuff for people who are unhoused or just maybe can't afford things like shampoo, conditioner, tampons, and pads.
Right.
In winter gloves, and just socks and stuff like that. Right. And so one of my coworkers was going to New Mexico for a business trip. And on the way to the airport in Arizona, gets an Uber driver who starts going off about basically specifically stuff that has to do with stuff they had like wrong audience. And the coworker did not just let it rest. And I was good. That must have been I would like to have been a fly on the wall for this conversation.
Yeah.
The dude was just doing the ranting and stuff. And it's like, you hear about that with the taxi drivers and, used to hear about that. Not so much necessarily with Uber, but Uber have just become like the taxi drivers at this point. So I'm like, it's one of those natural progressions when they get enough people who screw around or do stuff or do their own rants in the car or...
Yep.
Did you ever watch Taxi Cab Confessions? I think that was what it was called.
I've heard of it, and I've probably seen clips, but I never actually watched it.
People are crazy.
Yes.
That's all I'm going to say. Like, you watch it and the things they would do. And it would also be the hitting on the taxi driver to see if you could get out of it. It's like, once they start that meter or whatever, that stuff's heavily tracked.
Yeah.
So, unless they own their own taxi and aren't working for a distribution thing, in which case you're going to get, what is that? That horror film, Bone, what is it with? Yep, I can't remember the character name or anything, but it has Denzel Washington and Angelina Jolie, and we know the author. We've met the author. Wow.
I'm looking at you completely blankly. Are you talking? It wasn't a Jeffrey Deaver, was it?
It's a Jeffrey Deaver. It was the one that got made into a movie with Denzel as the character in who's paraplegic.
Oh, was that Denzel?
Quadriplegic. Paraplegic. I don't remember. Yeah.
It wasn't Angelina Jolie. It was Judd, wasn't it?
Nope. No? Ashley Judd was in the Alex Cross. Alex Cross. All right, that was a great conversation we had there. It's clear as mud. But
yes.
anyway, that movie, because in the beginning, somebody gets into the taxi cab and then it locks and they've basically
and they can't
sharpened the lock so it's cutting their fingers. That is how you get that when they're an unassociated taxi is what I'm saying. Okay?
And it comes around.
Wow.
Okay, on the heels of that, I'm going to tell my dentist story now. I've been waiting to tell you for days. And so I am a dental phobe. If anybody didn't know that about me, I'm really shocked because I'm a dental phobe. So anyway, I go, and it's a new to me hygienist. So, and it turns out her name is Nikki.
Oh.
So she was funny. And you all have to understand, I try really hard not to use salty language in public. I really do. It's a losing battle sometimes. Because I think at one point I just looked at her, I said, fuck it, go for it. And I went, and then I was kind of like, shit. I didn't say it loud. I said it very softly, but she laughed. So it was okay. So at the end after she does all of her stuff, my dentist comes in and we're talking, and he asked me how my husband was doing, how Joe was doing, because Joe's been ill. And I can't remember what I've said on what I've said here and what I haven't. So we'll just skip over that part. And I made some joking reference to, well, I haven't killed him in his sleep yet. So then he tells me, so then my dentist is like, oh, do you know about that dentist up in Arvada, Aurora, somewhere up in Denver? And I said, what dentist? I'm thinking, is he trying to send me to a different dentist? I don't clue in quickly sometimes. He goes, he killed his wife. And I said, what? What are you talking about? There was this dentist up there he and his wife had 6 children. And apparently either the wife was fooling around or he thought his wife was fooling around. So he poisoned her. So then Dr. Stacy and Nikki dental hygienist Nikki start talking about, she actually temped for this guy. And she said he was she said there was something weird about him. It was before he killed his wife, obviously. I hope he's not still practicing. Anyway, so when I'm able to break in, I said, how did he poison her? And Dr. Stacy's like, I think he says, I think it was arsenic. He ordered rat poison online and used that. And I looked at him and I said, arsenic, rat poison, why wouldn't he just use eye drops? That's so much easier. It's so much easier to obtain and harder to detect. And Dr. Stacy looks at me and he starts laughing. He goes, given this a lot of thought, have you? I was like, and I looked at him and I was like, oh, you probably don't remember that I'm a podcast co-host and we do a lot of true crime. So there's practically no way you can kill a person that we haven't talked about. He's like, sure. And I could just see he's writing in the chart, call Joe. This is why I do not even keep eye drops in the house. I don't want to because I talk about that all the time.
I have eye drops in the house. I also, my muscle relaxer is lethal if, you can overdose somebody with it. And I can get that shit from Mexico. So, right over the counter. Yeah. Oh, so we went, first of all, I'm upset that I didn't know I could just walk to the pharmacia and get something that would make me stop vomiting. I mean, I wouldn't have made the walk.
Yes.
But my husband would have. But they give you free things if you go there enough or you spend enough there, then they give you free shit too. And so they gave me, after I had stopped being sick, and I went in to buy Pepto-Bismol because I was also living off that for quite some time. And they were like, here, these are free gifts. And so they they were actually like ampules of a stuff you could inject for the vomiting. Oh my God. They also had oral medication I could have taken for it. And I was like, great, thank you. So I had that. And then what else did they give me free? I don't remember what. It was like a gel that you put on for pain that I haven't tried yet. I was like, all right, I'll take that too. And so they just give you stuff. But nice. I'm like, what else do you want to give me? What are their drugs?
Well, I remember when Lucy spent a semester in England, she asked one of her friends, she thought she had pink eye. Uh-huh. And she said, I need to see a doctor. How do I go about doing that? And they were like, okay, what do you need to see a doctor for? And she's like, well, I think I have pink eye. And they were like, you don't go to a doctor for that. You just go to the pharmacy and tell them, and they'll give you she was shocked, as was I. You just go to the pharmacy and say, look, I have conjunctivitis, and they give you the medicine.
Really?
You don't have to go to a doctor to get it.
I didn't know that.
So when you go to England, if you happen to get conjunctivitis...
Oh, yeah, there are more things that you can get over the counter there as well. And Australia is similar, where we regulate everything so that somebody can make money off of it.
Oh,
then they don't regulate shit they should. You like all the fucking additives in our food that make it so we have some of the least healthy food in the entire freaking world. Yep. So, again, I get so much healthier when I go to Mexico. And I'm just... we're eating out every day, and it's still healthier, except when somebody gives you norovirus, which, by the way... It really isn't Montezuma's revenge, right? Because I thought that referred to the water issue.
Yes.
But it means somebody didn't wash their hands after they went to the bathroom, which I find terribly foul because I'm like, okay, I ate that.
Joe got that in Colorado Springs.
I also...
it's been a few years, but yeah.
Well, I got E. coli in Colorado Springs from Jason's Deli. So it's not there anymore. So whatever. But... And then when I ventured back there again later, much later, I got a different kind of food poisoning. And I was like, that's it, I'm done.
Yeah.
But the reason I kept going there before is because they were delivered when like hardly anybody except for Chinese and pizza delivered. Now it's a different ballgame, right? It's not a draw.
Yeah.
But they would do free delivery. And so when I got E. coli, it's when my daughter had been born I think she was 6 weeks old.
Oh my God.
And my husband took my son to meet a friend from England at Disney World. I was invited as well, and I said, why the fuck, when I am 6 weeks postpartum, would I want to go to Disney World of all places? So I stayed home, and then I ended up thinking I was dying, basically, and just, luckily, with a newborn, I was very careful to wash my hands and everything, and just clean myself all the time, and... I could be passed out because she would be passed out, and then she'd wake up, eat, we pass out, change diaper, pass out. So that was not fun.
Oh my God.
Postpartum having E. coli.
No. I mean, it's never fun, but that's even worse.
I told him though, I was like, all the times I've gotten a stomach bug in my life, these are the top two.
Yeah.
Was the E. coli and the norovirus. But norovirus is known for being violent, and I already get violently sick, so, it doubled.
Wow.
Jeffrey was like, it was really awful. I felt really bad listening to you be sick. It sounded terrible. I never want to hear that again. Don't ever again. All right, we should probably...
Yes, you're going to start.
Yes, I am. So
I can't even remember what... Oh, yes, I remember. I was like, you told me what we were talking about. But that was minutes ago.
This is one of the more known ones, but we've never covered him. So I'm going to talk about Richard Speck and Corazon Amaral. And I'm not sure quite how to pronounce that because it's a Filipino name. So apologies if it's wrong. Because I was like, my brain is like Corazon, of course. It's Spanish.
Right.
But Amaral seems almost more Portuguese. And I definitely do not know Portuguese or Filipino. So here we go.
With that said,
apologies if I butcher her name because mad respect. But just after 6 a.m. on July 14th, 1966, in a townhouse in Chicago housing nursing hopefuls, 23-year-old Corazon Amaral climbed out a second-floor window and screamed for all she was worth. As she said, I screamed and screamed and screamed. She was the sole survivor of a murder spree that cost the lives of 8 women and lasted 4.5 hours.
Oh, my God.
Within 3 days, the killer would attempt suicide after seeing his own press and realizing he was cornered. Not because he was sad about what he did, but because he realized he had missed his escape window. And it would be his emergency surgeon, 25-year-old Dr. Leroy Smith, who would recognize his Born to Raise Hell tattoo, which was just etched. It's not like an artsy, it's just, it looks, somebody did it themselves. Right. Yeah. Never mind that a drifter named Claude Lunsford had called police and identified the killer based on the sketch, as he'd been drinking on a fire escape with the man a day before this, a call police completely ignored. So he could have been getting all that credit, but instead, and honestly, I don't know if it's Leroy Smith or Leroy, and I say that because it's capital L, little e, capital R, which sounds more like Leroy, but who the fuck knows? The man in question was Richard Speck, and this one prolonged act of violence would set off a wave of terror in Chicago, an international argument about people with XYY chromosomes, and prison reform, not to mention his own infamy. Speck was born December 6, 1941, the day before Pearl Harbor, in Kirkwood, Illinois. His father was a laborer who died at 52 when Speck was 6, and his mother was a religious teetotaler who remarried 3 years later, sticking her 8 children with a stepfather who was a traveling insurance salesman from Texas, drank heavily, was verbally abusive, and had a criminal record of minor crimes like DUI and forgery. Sounds like a winner.
I was going to say, what a delight.
The family that hadn't grown and moved out went to live in Santo, Texas with him. Speck became a heavy drinker by the age of 15, though he'd been drinking for years by that time and kept a transient lifestyle. They said he started drinking at 12, and then by 15 it was daily. Moving between jobs and various living arrangements, which mostly consisted of mooching off others for years. He had 7 siblings to mooch off of. And friends. When he was 20, he got a 15-year-old girl pregnant. Her birth would reflect his usefulness as a daughter. He ended up having a daughter with her when she came into the world while he was serving a brief stint in jail for disturbing the peace. So he wasn't even there at her birth. And
although, wait, when was this? Early 60s?
So, yes.
So it really wasn't that uncommon for the father not to.
It wasn't, but they might be there when you got home, or they might be somewhere in the hospital.
I was going to say, they usually were in the hospital, but it wasn't considered as big a... No. But, yeah.
Even when I was born, I don't think they were typically letting fathers in the birthing room.
No.
By the time he left Texas in 1966 to head back up to Chicago, he had been arrested 41 times in the state. His crimes included forgery, robbery, aggravated assault, parole violations, and more. His last crime in Texas involved him robbing a grocery store of cigarettes, then, the audacity, selling them in the parking lot. When police showed up to arrest him, he'd already fled the state. He had granted his wife, the mother of his child, in 1966. What the fuck was I trying to say there? He had married, I'm pretty sure, his wife, the mother of his child, in 1966, and she were married. Oh, I know what I'm saying. It's okay. He had granted his wife, the mother of his child, a divorce in 1966, and she were married 2 days later. As far as I could tell, he was never actually with her. Like, there's nothing. It kept saying he moved in with this person. He moved in with this person. So he wasn't even living with her.
Okay.
I highly doubt he was giving her any help with any finances because he was always in jail. How do you make money? So... yeah, he spent most of his time in various jails and doing that whole moving in with other people, though not in a relationship way, to be clear. This wasn't him, like, bouncing between women to cheat with. It was, like, there was one woman, I was like, what the fuck was his mom thinking? His mom recommended he move in with this widow to help care for her 4 children. And I was like, what about his 40 arrests made you think this was the right action to do to this widow? Everything was fine, but...
some moms will not believe their child does anything wrong.
Oh my God. I just feel like after, I don't know. Like, let's go with 20-ish arrests. You go, maybe my child's a fucking dick. I don't know. So he implied that she cheated on him. And I was like, if your spouse is just never there, they disappear for years, they're not contributing to the household, they're not supporting their child, is it really cheating if you move on in that time?
I would say no, but...
I don't think so. Just like you're gone and I don't know where you are. I guess that we're not actually married.
That sounds like abandonment.
Yes. His hatred of her, though, would carry forward into his final crimes. Back in Illinois, his crimes escalated. Though he had attempted to assault a woman at knife point in Texas, her screaming scared him away and brought cops down on him so fast that they were able to catch him, and he spent another stint in jail. But in April of 1966, he perpetrated his first known rape. Her name is Virgil, but it was a woman. Virgil Harris, who was 65 years old and had babysat that evening, getting home at 1 a.m. only to be greeted by a tall white man with a knife. He was like 6 feet tall, and she had this whole description of him. He put a blindfold on her, bound her, raped her, and took off with the babysitting money she'd earned which was $2.50 at the time, and likely other items from inside the house, because they just said that he ransacked the house. And I was like, okay, so he took stuff to sell.
I would be... That just is that's really adding insult to injury.
That's what I thought. So I was like, it's terrible that I thought that, because like he also raped her. But I was like, then you stole her $2.50 that she freaking earned.
Yes. And took her ironing board. I don't know what
right.
You took her coffee pot and her toaster.
Like one or the other, you prick.
Yes. You don't get to victimize her in two completely separate ways.
That's right. Because I really did was like, well, are you kidding me? He then stole her babysitting money.
I know.
You know what she had to do for that? We don't. Okay. Another woman was found dead a week later.
Oh.
And from what I could tell, it wasn't ever proven it was him, but 32-year-old Mary Catherine Pierce had worked at a tavern where Speck had been doing carpentry work. She was found in the hog house he'd built behind the tavern, and when police told him to stick around for questioning, he was gone again.
The hog house?
Yep, he'd built a hog house behind the tavern. I was like, oh my God, was it barbecue? Like, what are we talking here? Why was there a hog house that he built behind it?
Yeah, I'm like, is this a pen where they house
It
hogs?
was still empty. There were not hogs in it at the time that her body was found. So that's better, because there might have been eaten and then they wouldn't have found her.
Okay.
But anyway, he fled again. So where he fled was his sister's in Chicago. During this time, though he'd arrived in Chicago, he had been in different cities. And so now here he is back in Chicago. Her husband, who had been a merchant marine, took him to the U.S. Coast Guard office to get authority to work as a seaman. And he found a place on an ore lake freighter on April 30th. I didn't think about it. The Great Lakes are very large. They have very large ships on them.
Yes.
But that was like, there's a Coast Guard there. I didn't think of Coast Guard as being related to a lake, but I get it. But I was just like, the Coast Guard? And then I had to go double check, and I was like, are we talking about Illinois, or did I get confused, right?
I do that.
And then being called a seaman, and I'm like, you're a lakeman. It's not a sea, is it? Like, what the? So anyway, I was very puzzled. And so, yes, I did go look. I was like, I have been talking about Chicago, right? Like, is there a Chicago, Louisiana? Like, what's happening here?
Is there a Chicago, Louisiana? There probably is.
There probably is. There's a Chicago, Indiana, because he goes there at one point. And I was like, wait, what? Why are you fucking with me like this? I don't understand. So anyway, on May 3rd, he had an acute attack of appendicitis and had to be flown in by the Coast Guard for surgery. So he only served a couple days at that point. Then he was able to go back on May 20th, fully recovered, but got in a fight with an officer and was kicked out June 15th. Thus ended his time as a seaman.
Wow.
So now his brother took him to the National Maritime Union at, and I am going to give the address, and there's a reason for that, 2335 East 100th Street, for his seaman's card. And I was like, what? Did he not have a card when he... I'm so confused by all this. On July 8th, he picked up his ship and inquired about jobs. He picked up his card. On July 11th, his sister kicked him out, and he found a rooming house near the NMU to stay. And that's, again, the National Maritime Union, which I'm not going to say every time. So it's NMU. He got a berth on a ship July 21st on an oil tanker this time. So now I understand what all the ships on the lakes are. Or oil, etc. And a ride the 30 minutes to Indiana, Chicago, Indiana, to be exact, where he dropped his suitcase. So he was going to board. He's told he has this, you have a berth, you have a place on this ship, you got to drive the 30 minutes. So he probably had to pay for that trip. I have no idea. He gets there and discovers they gave it away to someone else. Somebody else is taking that berth. So we don't need you. So we had to go back to Chicago.
Okay, that's aggravating.
That's aggravating. Where he dropped he dropped his suitcases off at a gas station. He walked in there. He said, "I'm a seaman," and I know how many times do I have to say that word? I don't know. And and I need to leave these somewhere. So they were like, "Oh, okay," and they let him leave his luggage, like his suitcases there.
Okay.
And then he went and he found an empty house, and he slept there. So pissed. He went back to the NMU. His sister and her husband came out to visit him, and they parked across the street from 2319 East 100th Street, where there were some townhomes, one of which housed senior student nurses and nurses who were there on the Filipino registered nurse exchange.
Ah, okay. It's all coming together now.
Yes, it was July 13th. So they're sitting there having a conversation. His sister had given him $25 in cash, and he took his rage to a series of taverns to spend it all. He left a tavern with a 53-year-old woman named Ella Mae Hooper, pulling a knife on her and forcing her to return to his ratty hotel room that he'd secured with some of that cash before he went out to drink. There, he raped her and robbed her, getting his hands on her .22 caliber pistol, which apparently did her no good. He pulled a knife. She didn't pull her gun. So it tells me she hadn't trained on it. She just bought her gun, right?
Right.
He grabbed dinner, then a few more drinks, and headed out on a walk that brought him to the townhome right around 11 p.m. So that's when it starts. There, he climbed in through a window and made his way to the first of several bedrooms, where he knocked 4 times on the locked door. This detail just kills me for some reason. Corazon opened it. I was like, girl, you had the door locked for a reason. Say, who's there? You know? He forced her and another woman who was in there at knife point to go into the next room, where there were 3 more women. The 3 Filipino women who were part of this dorm ran into a closet in the room and held the door closed against them. But one of the American women coaxed them out, telling them he wasn't there to hurt them. When they came out, the 6th woman had been rounded up, and so now there's an additional woman. She had been in a different room, and she's been added to the group. And I'm like, they were in the freaking closet, damn it. Which tells you who were the trusting people. Yep. Speck was known for not talking to journalists after his arrest, and he never fully revealed what happened in the house that night, which is why we don't have more details. Like, what did he see that made him go back to that townhome?
Yeah.
Did he just see, hey, there's townhomes and I could probably go in there and rob a bunch of people? Did he see nurses going in and out? Yeah, that sort of thing. Because these were, since they were senior nurses, they did work in uniform, like, I guess what it's apprenticeship, internship, whatever it's called.
Did
clinicals.
Did he just walk by and...
Right. So, we'll never know why. And in court, he denied remembering what happened at all. He was like, I don't remember what happened. You know, like, I don't remember any of that. Oh, no. He did give some information in a single interview years later, but he said a lot more on a mysterious tape that turned up in 1996. This is the thing I had not heard about.
Oh.
Years after Speck had died. This isn't a spoiler. He's dead now. The tape was shocking, apparently filmed by Speck and other inmates in 1988 and featuring basically porn sections where Speck had sex with other inmates, filleted another inmate, walked around in silk women's underwear, otherwise nude. And interestingly, the video showed that he had gynecomastia, or the growth of breasts on a biological male, which he said he was said to have achieved with hormones smuggled into the prison. This was planned. This is something he wanted to do. He had a lover and spoke about how much they got away with in Statesville Correctional Center, which included a plethora of cocaine and marijuana and a roll of cash. They did the coke on camera. The marijuana was shown. They were just having a high old time.
Wow.
Yes.
Pun intended.
Yep. But the most interesting part was an interview conducted by another inmate. It was also the most troubling. It started with a voice from off camera asking, "What you locked up for?" 8 counts of murder, Speck said. "Did you kill them?" "Sure I did." "Why?" "It just wasn't their night."
Wow.
Dickhead. Yeah.
Wow.
So, and I have to say, when you hear sure, I assume it's like the timing and that's just something that was used more than. He basically answers sure to like everything people ask him, you know. That was just his stock response. "Sure I did." He said he went in intending to rob the place. It was just supposed to be a burglary, but it escalated. He had drunk whiskey and taken both speed and barbiturates before heading out on that walk, though he would later say on the videotape that he would have done it sober as well. He forced all 7 women into an empty bedroom and tied them up using torn bed sheets. Locked in the room, the women all waited their turn as he removed them one by one, telling them he wouldn't hurt them, that he only needed money to get to New Orleans and was going to go through the house for valuables he could use. But once he removed a woman, she never returned. The first woman he took out of the room was 20-year-old Pamela Wilkeney. On the videotape, he said, quote, "All I wanted to do is burglary. It started off as burglary, then all hell broke loose." He claimed, "I was on acid, drugs, one of them spit on me in the face. She said she was going to pick me out in a lineup. I went off and hit her in the chest with a knife." Hit her in the chest with a knife. is what he said.
What we would call stabbing.
Yeah. Actually, he was talking about Pamela. It's theorized he removed her to rape her, but then when he got pissed at her, he killed her instead. After he'd killed Pamela, 2 other student nurses returned. Oblivious to what was happening inside the townhome, they were the next to die. These were 20-year-old Marianne Jordan and 21-year-old Suzanne Ferris. Suzanne was stabbed 18 times and Marianne 3 in the chest, neck, and her left eye. Pamela had only 1 stab wound, which had found her heart, and she had been strangled.
Oh.
She was found on the bed. Marianne was found in the same room as Pamela, but Suzanne was in the hallway, the stab wounds to her chest and chin. Marianne and Suzanne had struggled with him before their deaths. Having killed 3 of the nurses, he said he decided to kill the rest as they'd seen his face and were witnesses now. That's when he began removing them one at a time. And I did stress that she was on the bed because everybody else appears to have been killed on the floor. And the crime scene photos make this very clear. Ugh. There's a lot of blood. Like the cops who walked into this walked into literally a bloodbath. In the same room as Marianne and Pamela, he killed 20-year-old Patricia Matusik by strangling her. In a different bedroom, he killed 24-year-old Nina Jo Schmale by stabbing her in the neck, then he strangled her. He also killed 2 of the 3 Filipino exchange nurses in that room. 24-year-old Valentina Pasión was strangled, and 23-year-old Merlita Gargullo had her throat slashed. The last woman to be killed was 22-year-old Gloria Jean Davy. She was found on the first floor nude on the couch. She was the only one who had been raped before he killed her by strangulation. Most or all of the women had been gagged with torn remnants of the sheets, possibly explaining why there were no screams. Though he had the gun on him, he said it would have been too loud. And he said something along the lines of, and I just wasn't in shape to have to run. Yeah. I was like, he's very blasé. I watched portions of the video. He did use it as a threat. On the tape, he described strangulation. He stated, quote, strangle a person? It's not like what you see on TV. About 3 seconds and they're dead. You've got to go at it for 3.5 minutes. It takes a lot of strength, end quote. The Cook County Jail chief psychiatrist, Dr. Marvin Zaporin, felt that Gloria Davy had reminded him of his ex-wife. She was actually a dead ringer, they say, for his ex-wife, and he'd focused that hatred on her. When he was shown pictures of the women, the only one he reacted to was that of Gloria, to which he jumped, quote, as if I'd put a rattlesnake in his hand, is what that therapist said. According to the first detective on the scene, Jack Melinda, the only one who had a ligature on the neck was Gloria Davy, who was strangled, and the ligature around her neck was so tight that I had a hard time getting my finger between the ligature and her throat where I could pull it off and cut it off. It was bound so tight. Ugh. Now, part of me, of course, wonders now, modern day forensics, why, sir, were you cutting off the ligature? But he had other interviews. This is a guy who was clearly traumatized by what he walked into in there, and I don't think he was thinking about stuff as he's coming upon all these bodies one after another. So who knows? But in the 60s, probably the forensic stuff wasn't as tightly.
Yeah, and it may have been somebody has something around their neck, you have to get it off. Yeah. It's an instinct.
Right. So I think just like he was kind of maybe a little, I don't want to say panic, but on the verge, right?
He had to have been in shock.
Yes. So Gloria had been out when he first got there, but she came home at 11:30 p.m. and walked up to her room, which happened to be the room in which the other women were already being held. As she went to open the door, he yanked it open from inside the room and forced her to join them.
Of course.
On the video, he said, quote, she was the one that was flirting with me. She was the last one to go. I knew I had all the time in the world. She didn't have nothing I wanted, and I killed her. When asked on the tape, how'd you feel after killing all those ladies? He responded, like I always felt, have no feeling. If you're asking if I felt sorry, no. Ugh. By now you're asking, or should be if you remember the beginning of the story, what about the survivor? Why didn't he kill her? Corazon Amaral was 23, just 1 year younger than Speck at the time of the murders. He did this at 24. He had quite an eventful life up to that point. She said the American women were certain he wasn't going to kill him. Quote, they told us we more or less had to trust him. Maybe if we were calm and quiet, he will be too. He had been talking to us all and he seems calm enough, and that is a good sign. End quote. They were just so, I was talking to poor Jeffrey while I was researching this, as often happens, and I was like,
yep.
The Filipino ladies were, kind of properly, this isn't going to go well.
Mm-hmm.
And these American women were so naive. Like, I was like, what kind of neighborhood did they come from that they would trust? But it was also the 60s. And so.
But the women from the Philippines would have had the memories.
Yeah,
not themselves,
in the 60s. So.
But from their mothers of what happened in the Philippines during World War II.
Right.
So
and Vietnam was coming to a close. Really, there were still some actions there. But so they were from more of a war-torn, dangerous.
Yes.
Possibly highly rapey if there were soldiers there and stuff, because sadly that does happen. So, yes. Because I was like, there's that part of me that's like, why didn't anybody, when there were 7 of them, but I don't want to go there because not their fault. They're doing what they think is best. They think that he's telling the truth. Mm-hmm. So, yeah. But I still had an internal struggle while reading out because I'm like, just fucking
run,
scream, get up and run at him in mass. Just, oh my God. But it was a very different time. They were in a very different situation. They had very different life experiences. And so it is not their fault and they didn't do anything wrong. So I just have to say that because of my own brain as I was going through this, like, God damn it, he shouldn't have been able to do this to them. Unfortunately, that's more like the sign of a sociopath. Like, that he seems calm and that's it. No, that means he doesn't give a shit about what he's doing to you. And he would later receive the diagnosis that he was a sociopath. So the other women waited calmly as he returned about every 20 to 30 minutes. That's what they said about the time it took between women to take another woman with him. Always washing his hands in the bathroom first, because Corazon would hear the water running. She reported hearing each time before he came in, the water running in the bathroom. And again, as bloody as the scene was, it was a necessity. But Corazon didn't trust that it would be okay. She heard muffled screams while they were out of the room. And while he was out of the room, at one point, she slid under one of the bunk beds. And in the pictures, they're pretty low to the ground. Mm-hmm. She was only 4'10". She was an itty bitty.
Wow.
Yes. And she stayed there, though, through the rape, like hours and hours, through the rape of Gloria on the bed across the way. Oh, because she was the last horrific one in there. And she had to hide while that was happening. And after he raped her, he let her out of the room, took her downstairs to that sofa, did more, and then that's where he killed her. And after he let her out of the room, Corazon actually switched to a different bed on the other side of the room, and because it had a blanket hanging down over it, so in case he came back in, which he did. He came in and, looked around. So she waited through all that, and then she kept waiting. She wanted to be certain he was gone. Luckily, he hadn't counted, or he'd gotten confused, and he never came looking for her. She stayed hidden.
That's lucky.
Yeah. She stayed hidden until alarm went off at 5 a.m. Then she started working to get her wrists and ankles in because she was still, you're not moving. You're hardly breathing, right? She was trying to stay as quiet as possible. So once that alarm went off and didn't get stopped and she didn't hear any more noises, that's when she started trying to get herself untied because they were tied at the wrists and ankles during this. And it took her about half an hour, she said, because another alarm went off at 5:30 and she was really just getting loose. She wandered through the townhouse, finding all of the women except Gloria, because she did not go downstairs, before climbing out onto that window ledge and screaming for help. She would be in the building until police arrived, where she was let out with a towel over her head after being interviewed. So that, because there were press everywhere.
Can you imagine?
No.
Walking through the house and finding that. That's awful.
Nope. And she didn't even know, the other 2 women had returned home, but she found the one in the hallway. And yeah. When it came time to identify the bodies in a method dismayingly similar, this bothered me. Nobody pointed this out, and I was like, okay, but did they not hear how shit had happened? Dismayingly similar to how the women had been killed, they put all the families in a room and led them out one at a time to identify their loved ones. Oh. They all just had to sit in that room and wait their turn to go see their loved one and identify the body. I was just like, that feels sort of sick to me. But
yeah.
I mean, I don't know how else they could have done it. I'm not saying that they could have, I don't know, make different appointment times so they're not all sitting in that room horrified. I don't know. But I imagine, since this is considered the first random mass murder, not to be confused with, dictators and
planned. Yeah.
Yes, but this was random. They couldn't figure out why they didn't. Yeah, so it was just a random targeting. He didn't know anybody in that building, and went in. Speck was apprehended as detailed earlier and taken to a jail to await trial. His attorney tried to go for insanity, of course, and there was even a contingent, and I'm not going to go into this, but folks who are interested in genetics and chromosome stuff, I look this up. It went crazy. But there was a contingent researching XYY syndrome, is what they called it, in the UK, who gave his attorney information claiming that men with XYY syndrome were prone to aggression and that this would support an insanity plea. Their belief was he couldn't help himself. That's why they were trying to help. This theory blew up over the next few years, and even though Speck was tested and found not to have that extra Y chromosome twice, it hit the news that he did, which blew up even more. And so it's funny, but I read about this and then I go down into to look at more resources, and there were so many articles about him having XYY syndrome because it took off all over the place, and people were like, oh my gosh, this is interesting. And then, yeah. One of the theories was that heavy acne was a trait of someone with XYY syndrome because they'd noticed that these people in this home in Scotland that they felt had the XYY and were aggressive. A lot of them had acne, so they decided that meant that they had XYY syndrome. And when you look at photos of Speck, you'll see he has severe acne scarring. Not acne at that time as an adult, but the pitted scarring that you see. This, of course, would also be proven untrue in the future about XYY. They just happened to, and I was like, they're in a mental home for aggressors. Yeah. And so what do you think the care was like there? What were they afforded in that time to be clean?
And what were they being taught?
Yeah. So that's why they probably had acne, but okay. So it would be a few years in the future, though. It wasn't until mid-1969 that the American Psychiatric Association officially shut down the crazy claims officially in the U.S. So they were like, no, we're done. Like, this is not a thing. Stop it. Speck was found fit to stand trial by a panel of experts and ultimately convicted. And I still saw articles indignant that they had found him sane because XYY and yada yada.
Right.
At the trial, Corazon, when asked to identify the killer, stood up and walked to stand in front of him before pointing forefinger was just an inch from his forehead and said, "This is the man."
Whoa.
Yeah. The jury only took 45 minutes to deliberate. He was given a death sentence, which would have been the electric chair, but it was later found that they had removed people from the jury, like illegally excluded people who didn't believe in the death penalty.
Okay.
And so his sentence was changed to 400 to 1,200 years in prison. He came up for parole for the first time on September 15th, 1976, 9 years after he was first convicted. That's how long 1,200 years in prison gets you before you're up for parole back then.
9 out of 1,200. That's what? I don't have a calculator.
I'm not gonna. But, and they did end up lowering his term, but it was still like 100-something years, So I'm like, why keep spending the money and doing this bullshit when 100 years still means the same thing, you idiots? It took them 7 minutes to deny him parole at that first one. Because he still showed absolutely no remorse or feeling about the murders.
Yeah.
He would be up for parole 7 times, denied each time, with the attending family members dropping off a few at a time. Nina's brother, John Schmiel, who ended up being a doctor, by the way, went until the bitter end, until Speck dropped out of a heart attack right before he turned 50.
When?
I know. It was literally the day before he turned 50.
Wow.
And so his dad died at 53 of a heart attack. So I feel like there was something genetic there probably. But John Schmiel was very outspoken and stuff like that. So a lot of information also came from him. And he actually put a bunch of pictures out there. So I have some neat pictures of, like the living nurses in that building that he shared. So that people could see his sister, not a murder victim and a body on because there's plenty of crime scene photos and photos at the morgue of all the girls on the tables. Sickeningly, the video that came out after his death showed he found prison a great place. He was having a great time, and that pissed me off.
Well,
Quote,
it sounds like...
I know he was partying. Quote, if they only knew how much fun I was having, they would turn me loose, he said. He and his fellow inmates seemed to have the run of the place. One of his guards said he was very weak-minded and easy to influence, but he seemed to be in control in the videos. Now, that guard was actually there during a time where things were more under control, but he retired. And so he ended up coming in and viewing the videos and being like, wow, they really let this go to shit, right? Pretty much. He didn't say it that way. He was found to have interesting, they called it Madonna prostitute complex everywhere. I've only ever heard Madonna whore.
Yeah.
So anyway, he had that complex that had influenced his treatment of women. On the video, he says he enjoys having sex with men, and when asked if he liked women, he said, quote, yeah, I like them in their place, end quote. Before his rampage, he did have female friends and sisters, all of whom were securely placed in the Madonna category, as was his mom. In prison, he earned the other inmates fear through his rages and otherwise icy calm when he wasn't right. Like, they were pretty scared of him, so he could do what he wanted to. His own lover in prison, Ronzel Honeybun Larimore, talked about Speck.
Excuse me.
Yep. Ronzel
Honeybun
Larimore.
Okay.
Talked about Speck coming after him for eating the last of the chicken at one point. And he never even said if he ate the last of the chicken. He just said the chicken was gone. And then interestingly, how he put it, and then he came home. Yeah. So I was like, he must have been out of the word or something. Like, I don't. Anyway, he said, quote, I thought I was a goner. The way you were looking, it was probably good my door was locked. Because they're sitting there together in these interviews where the sex isn't happening. And just completely relaxed. Like, Speck has his legs crossed at one point. At one point, Honey Bun has his leg up, you know, kind of like relaxed in his chair with his leg up on Speck's lap, you know, just very chill.
Like they're in their living room at home.
Precisely. So Speck's response, laughing and saying, quote, you ain't eaten no chicken since, have you? End quote. They actually played portions of the 2-hour-long video on CBS News in a series called Richard Speck Speaks Inside the Killer's Mind. That's where I watched it from. Exhorting parents to make sure their children were in another room for each of the 5 segments. You might want to remove your children, or be sure your children are in another room so they can't see the next 5 minutes. So I think they were each like 5-minute increments. Surprisingly, they showed him in just the blue silk panties, his new breasts exposed. I was like, what? I don't think that would happen now with a dude with gynecomastia, or I don't think they would show that on the news. So yeah, because he actually takes his clothes off because the inmate that's interviewing wants to know, hey, you wearing your blue silk panties today or something like that. And he's like, yeah, I am. And he takes off his pants, then he takes off his shirt and sits.
I've never asked one of my friends what underwear they were wearing.
Hey, we'll start greeting each other that way. You wearing those white cotton panties today?
You wearing your granny panties? You wearing the dingy yellow granny panties today? The ones where
you wearing your period panties today? You know what? That actually works really well for if somebody's bitchy at you. Are you wearing your period panties today? No, I'm gonna use that one.
You can't ask
me
like
that. What? I know. There'll have to be like an age limit, like.
Like you just say, are you wearing your bitch panties today? Is it that day of the week? Bitch day?
Bitch day. What's happening? How are those hormones on this fine evening? At Speck's death on December 5th, 1991, he was found to have an enlarged heart, emphysema, and clogged arteries, which did make me feel a little better because I'm like, big whoop, a fucking heart attack. They're not pleasant, but fuck you. I would have preferred you have like long-term cancer.
Yes, I'm not unhappy he had emphysema.
So I hope he was miserable. Because I really feel he got off easily for his crimes. He wasn't even unhappy in prison.
Yeah.
He did a brutal, horrible thing to girls he didn't know. And it never said why or what drew him or what he saw or any of it. Anyway, he was cremated and his remains scattered so nobody could desecrate his grave. Shame. Statesville closed this past September, by the way. 2024, because it was falling apart. It was once considered one of the worst correctional facilities for overcrowding and lack of oversight. They said they had 1 guard to every 20 prisoners, which apparently is a very bad number.
That does not sound like
I was like, why are none of you telling me how many you should have?
Well, yeah.
I do not work for a correctional facility, and therefore I do not know. Corazon Amaral Atienza went on to become a nurse. She got married in 1969, thus Atienza, after moving back to the Philippines, but moved back to the U.S. and had children and was described as laughing a lot, though she often had nightmares that Speck was coming for her.
Well, yeah.
She actually stayed friends with a bunch of the cops and the state's district attorney and stuff that she worked, because she ended up being under protection for like a year until all of the trial stuff was done. She retired from her job as a critical care nurse at age 68 and enjoyed her time with her 2 children and 6 grandchildren. That was, as of the last thing I could find, was at the 50-year anniversary. Her daughter became a nurse practitioner, and I couldn't find news of her death, so she may still be going strong.
Wow, I would hope so.
There were other women who lived there, and at least 2 who were supposed to sleep over that night, who were spared due to staying at friends' houses or not coming over to sleep. There were a bunch of stories. This is already too long, so I cannot tell them to you. But one of them, another of the Filipino nurses, showed up while Speck was killing everyone else and rang the front doorbell. Because she was polite, see? She didn't live there, so she didn't unlock it and come in. When nobody came, she moved around to the back and rang again because they had a doorbell at the back. Unaware that Speck had, while she was going from the front to the back, opened the front door. He would have pulled her in.
Oh.
He didn't go back and check that back bell then when it rang, I think. So he just ignored it at that point. Maybe he didn't know there was a back doorbell, so he probably thought, all right, somebody's like ringing and leaving or something, so whatever, it's locked. That's how her life got spared.
Wow.
From a piece in the Chicago Times on the 40-year anniversary, they spoke a little of the victims. Nina Jo was a devout Christian who saw nursing as her calling. That's a quote from that article. Patricia spent time with her sister antiquing. Pamela attended her older brother's car races. Valentina intended to finish nursing school, get a job, and bring her family to the U.S. Gloria was engaged and was out to dinner with her fiancé and his parents that night. She was one of the one that came back late and was the last to die. Suzanne was engaged to Marianne's brother, and they were out with a friend who lived in the dorm next door, also a nursing student, and they'd been out talking about their wedding plans. Merlita cooked Filipino food for everyone and brought them together because she said something about the nurses. They came home and they smelled the pancit and they came in and they were like, this is so good. And I'm like, no shit. Because Filipino is some of the best food.
It is.
So I just wanted to end that with just a little piece about each person. Unfortunately, it's really hard to find anything else.
It always is.
But each of them was a human being and had all these years ahead of them, and he took that away. Sources: Chicago History Museum, Chicago Sun-Times, Vice, CBS News, NBC News, Chicago Tribune, WTTW News, and Wikipedia.
It's really hard sometimes to find anything about the victims.
Yes.
And
I looked up Corazon specifically as their survivor, and I really found very little. But also because she refused interviews. They were contacting her every 40-year anniversary, 50-year anniversary, and she would decline to comment or whatever. And I respect that.
Oh, yes.
Imagine being called every X number of years because somebody else wants to ask you about this horrific fucking thing you survived.
Sometimes what's really hard to find when we're talking about a male perpetrator of whatever, it'll be someone who's married and there's nothing about the spouse.
Yeah.
You know that he got married. You know the year he got married.
Yeah, at one point here with Speck, I was like, where's his wife? When they were just saying, oh, he stayed here. He stayed with this widow. He stayed with this friend of his who was an RN. One of his nurses was an RN, or one of his sisters was an RN, etc. So it's like, why, if you thought they were Madonna because they were nurses, why didn't that extend to these poor women? So yeah, at one point I stopped and went to look and couldn't find anything. And then I found him granting her the divorce or whatever. And I was like, okay. At that point, it should have just been automatic because of the abandonment. Whatever, dude. But yeah, she just was mostly non-existent. They did give her name. I chose not to because,
yep.
Although she's probably dead by now, but there's no reason to put her name out there.
No, I get that.
Yeah.
There's going to be some weird divorce stuff in my story as well.
Okay. Yeah.
There's so much weird stuff. There is just so fucking much weird stuff. I had to pare it down. I had to cut out some of the weird. And it's still long, especially for me. I usually go for short and punchy. But when I read about this, I was like, goat glands, I'm in. So Because sometimes you come across a story that's just so weird, you have to follow it.
Yeah.
So Thing 2 is the one who brought this to my attention. Because sometimes she'll be like, what are you doing on the next podcast? And sometimes I'll be like, I don't know, what do you got? Because there are a few people who send me stuff. And some of it I use and some of it I don't. Not all of it is as interesting to me as it is to others. Or I feel like some of it I'll keep to refer to later because I'm like, well, that's not big enough to stand on its own, but I can maybe do a compilation. I don't know what would be the warped thread tying them all together.
But I will find it someday.
So, there was that was the one key sentence that made me go, this needs to be on the podcast. So John Romulus Brinkley was born in 1885 in North Carolina. Come with me to 1885.
I almost did that because there was a lot of shit happening in 1966.
Oh my God, there was.
Yeah.
So 1885 was the year the roller coaster was patented. The Washington Monument was dedicated and the Statue of Liberty arrived in the U.S. AT&T was incorporated in New York. Does anybody even know what AT&T was? That was the big phone company. Atlantic.
Does it not exist anymore?
Well, we still have AT&T cell service. But it used to be Atlantic Telephone and Telegraph.
Yeah.
Anyway, the hideaway bed was patented. But what was interesting was it was patented by Sarah E. Good, who was the first Black woman to apply for and receive a patent.
Nice.
Yeah, I thought that was great. And Dr. Pepper was served for the first time. They do not say when...
glorified prune juice.
They do not know when it was invented, but that was the first time it was served. I'm like, all right. I used to like me a Diet Dr. Pepper.
Well, it's a very Southern thing. Patrick.
Mm-hmm.
What does he get to drink? Dr. Pepper. And Jeffrey's from Texas. What did he grow up drinking? Dr. Pepper. So that's as far as that theory can be explained. But it was like the drink when Jeffrey grew up there. It would be walking to the corner store if he got some money and buying himself Dr. Pepper.
See, I would say if there was a Southern drink, it would either be Cheerwine or RC Cola.
Dr. Pepper. That's the modern Southern drink.
It could
Other
be.
than, tea.
Sweet tea. Yes. I brand myself every time I say, do you have unsweetened tea?
Or lemonade.
I would rather, thanks, I'm full up on diabetes. Could I have the unsweetened
I love
tea?
real sweet tea. When I go to Georgia, I'm like, I don't need dessert because I do not like their dessert options. They all have nuts and very little chocolate. And I don't understand that concept. And so I don't really get dessert in Georgia, but then I get sweet tea instead.
There you go. So, Brinkley, his dad was a so-called mountain man who had been a medic for the Confederate Army during the Civil War, and he continued to practice medicine of some sort in the hills of North Carolina. The father, I guess, was some sort of ladies' man. His first marriage was annulled because he was underage when he got married. And I just thought, how often did that happen in the 1800s in the South? That a marriage was annulled because the boy was underage. And I'm thinking, there's a story there, but we'll never know what this one was.
Yeah.
He married 4 more times and outlived 3 of his wives.
Wow.
So...
Black widower?
Perhaps. That would be a different story. In 1870, at the age of 42, he married Sarah T. Mingus. And at some point later, her 24-year-old niece, who was also named Sarah, moved into the house with them. So to combat confusion, the wife was called Sally, or some people called her Aunt Sally. Niece Sarah gave birth to John Romulus in 1885, but died of pneumonia and tuberculosis when he was only 5 years old. So he remained with his father and with Aunt Sally. He was just part of the household. Okay. I can't imagine that wife and niece and you're sleeping with both. I don't get it, but who am I to say? It was a polycule. Anyway, they were also very, very poor. And I think the impact of being poor as a child and then at times as an adult had a very big impact on this person. The elder Richard died when his son was 10. And it made note that Brinkley went to a one-room schoolhouse in North Carolina. But here's the interesting thing. At that point in time, it only met for 3 to 4 months over the winter when they weren't needed on the farms.
Yeah.
It says he finished his studies at the age of 16. And I'm like, did he though? Did he finish, or did he just decide he was done?
Well, I don't know. If the standard back then was around farm work, it might have been a shorter.
It could have been. But anyway, I just said he finished going to school when he was 16. He wanted to be a doctor, but he worked as a mail carrier and somehow was given the opportunity to learn how to use a telegraph. So we went to New York City to work for Western Union and also worked for a couple of different railroads. He heard from Aunt Sally in 1906, toward the end of 1906. He heard from her that she was ill and she was dying, so he went home. And that was where he rekindled the romance with his childhood sweetheart, who he met at school, Sally White. And it's like, why is everybody named Sarah or Sally or both? Aunt Sally died on Christmas Day in 1906, and Brinkley and Sally were married January 27th. So barely 1 month later. Talk about your whirlwind romance. So it doesn't detail how this happened, because I'm like, there's a fucking story here.
Right.
The newlyweds hit the road posing as Quaker doctors. Right? How do you convince your wife? Or maybe she convinced him, but I'm thinking he convinced her, hey, let's become shysters. They would roll up into rural towns and present a medicine show, and then they would sell their patent medicines.
Did they ever go to Passamaquoddy?
I don't know.
It's the dude in Peach Dragon.
They eventually settled in Knoxville, Tennessee, where Brinkley sold virility tonics with a man named Dr. Burke. In 1907, they moved to Chicago, and Sally and Brinkley had a daughter named Wanda. Brinkley enrolled in Bennett Medical College, which was unaccredited and focused on eclectic medicine. Okay, that is not the horror show that it sounds like it could be, because it focused on herbal and natural remedies, partly in response to standard medical practices of that time, which included a lot of mercury-based medicines. Yeah. So going back to the natural remedies, and they focused a lot on Native American remedies. That the eclectic medicine, that's a whole rabbit hole. We're done. I'm not going any further down that one. It's going to come up later, the School of Eclectic Medicine, but I'm done discussing it because it's too much. There's just so much there. So Brinkley took classes during the day and worked the telegraph at night. In 1908, he and Sally had a son who unfortunately only lived for 3 days. So Brinkley was trying to double up on his classes to get through them quicker. And he was also working more shifts at night because he was in a huge amount of debt from going to medical school. So he came home one day and the wife and daughter were just gone. Sally had filed for divorce and child support. So after 2 months, Brinkley refused to pay, took his daughter, and moved to Canada. For whatever reason, Sally could not get an extradition order, so she dropped the suits. Brinkley came back to Chicago and they reunited. They just got back together like nothing had ever happened.
All right.
Extradition is going to be a key word later on, too. There's so many things I'm like, okay, this is a word that you're going to hear again. In 1911, Sally left again and returned to North Carolina, where she gave birth to another daughter, Erna Maxine. Brinkley packed up and walked away from his studies and all of his unpaid bills and joined her. He worked as something that was called an undergraduate physician, but had difficulty establishing a practice, so they were constantly moving from town to town. In 1912, he wanted to go back to school and finish his degree. The thing is, if you don't pay your tuition, they're not going to forward your transcript. They're like, cross my palm with silver if you want your grades. So he ended up buying a certificate from a degree mill called Kansas City Eclectic Medical University. He returned home, and the next year, daughter Naomi was born. I needed to keep a running tally. He had a lot of children. He moved them to New York City, like right after she was, like 10 minutes after she was born. He moved them to New York City. They weren't there long, and he moved them to Chicago. And Sally just apparently was done at this point. Said, fuck off, took the girls, and went back to North Carolina. So next, Brinkley moved to South Carolina and set up a shop with a man named James E. Crawford. And they called it Greenville Electromedic Doctors. Yeah, rolls off the tongue. They targeted men worried about their virility, giving them shots of...
That's not new.
I was just thinking, if you thought the little blue pill and people spending enormous amounts of money...
Guess what else you can get over the counter in Mexico?
The little blue pill.
Highly advertised on their front windows.
Of course. So they would give these men shots of colored water for $25. Now, that is the equivalent in 2023.
That's a lot.
It was $800 in 2023 dollars. They said they were giving the men Salvarsan, I don't know how to pronounce it, which was a recent drug discovery, which was used to treat syphilis. So I don't know why. Yeah, so I don't know why they were giving men syphilis drugs for virility. But... what was Viagra first developed as?
I don't remember, but it was something. Well, I thought it was like a vasodilator. So it was something for like, yeah. I don't remember.
After a couple of months, they fled town, leaving unpaid utilities, rent, bills to local suppliers, and clothing stores. And they landed in Memphis. Memphis is where he met 21-year-old Minerva Minnie Jones. In August of 1913, after a 4-day courtship, they got married. Okay, have I mentioned a divorce from Sally? Mm-mm. I have not. On the last stop of their honeymoon in Knoxville, on their honeymoon, they went to Kansas City, Denver, Pocatello, and Knoxville. I'm like, I just want to know what the thinking was on why those places. I mean, I get Denver, kind of. Yeah.
Pocatello is a big enough town that it's on the road signs and stuff. So it could have just been, these are the...
But back then,
I don't know.
So anyway, while they were in Knoxville, on their honeymoon, Brinkley was arrested, charged with practicing medicine without a license and writing bad checks. And he was extradited to Greenville. He tried to throw his partner under the bus. It was all his doing. And he did manage to get Crawford arrested, and they met up again in jail, but the charges stuck against him. So they were able to settle out of court with the merchants, and his father-in-law gave him bail money, but would not pay his debts. So Crawford ended up paying most of the settlement. And in the middle of all this, Brinkley and Minnie had a son named John. So Brinkley reunited with Minnie in Memphis, which is where Sally caught up to them, announcing to Minnie that Brinkley was still legally married to her. So Minnie and Brinkley moved to Arkansas together. Got a problem? Move.
Yes.
Where he unsuccessfully tried to open another medical practice. He eventually was able to buy a moderately successful practice from a retiring doctor and was able to get ahead enough to pay off Bennett Medical University, which was the first place he went, and then finish his degree at a different eclectic medical university in Kansas City. He studied the irritations and enlargements of the prostate gland in elderly men, paid $100, and got his degree.
Oh, okay.
As a part-time job, this is going to be very key in his life. As a part-time job, he got a company. He worked as the company doctor at the Swift and Company plant, patching minor wounds and studying the animals. This was basically a slaughterhouse and processing house. He learned that the workers at the plant believed that the healthiest animal slaughtered at the plant was the goat. Keep that in mind.
Okay.
We got goats, we got extradition. He did eventually, somewhere in all of this, he did eventually divorce Sally and remarry Minnie. The thing is, at that point in time, legally, you had to wait 6 months to get married again. I think he waited 4 days. He was like, I'm on a timetable here. Let's get this done.
Let's go. Let's get married.
Let's get this done.
Sounds romantic.
Yes. Yes, he does sound like quite the romantic. He is concerned with other people's virility. He had, at some point, he joined the Reserve Medical Corps, so he was called up for World War One. But he only served for 2 months because most of that was spent having a nervous breakdown. And they said, thank you, no. When he was released, he and the wife moved to Milford, Kansas, because the town had advertised that they needed a doctor. So in 1918, he opened a 16-room clinic there, and he really became a vital part of the community. This town loved him, in part because he paid good wages, and this was during the enormous, countrywide flu epidemic of 1918, and he made house calls and worked just tirelessly to keep his patients alive. So he really cared for the townspeople a lot. Okay. Reportedly, and there were so many different ways this was worded, a patient asked him if he could do anything for someone who was sexually weak. And I'm just like, all right.
Being given that diagnosis. And you're like, excuse me, what?
And Brinkley told him he'd have no problem. Oh, it was kind of a joke. You'd have no problem if you had a pair of goat glands inside you. And
she never thought you'd hear said for 1,000 Alex.
No.
Okay, just
here accounts vary as to whether Brinkley paid the patient to let him do the operation or the patient paid Brinkley for the experimental surgery. Either way, at his clinic, Brinkley started implanting goat testicles in his male patients to enhance virility and treat infertility.
Okay.
Can we all say goat scrotum and just... the price was $750 per operation.
Wow.
But where I yelled, great googly boogly, was when I read this. Following one of his crude operations, the body of a patient would typically absorb the goat tissue as foreign matter. The goat gonads failed to engraft into the body as they were simply placed within the human male testicle sac or the abdomen of women near the ovaries.
What, he just thought the body would
magically
assimilate whatever he put in there.
So the focus is all on goat testicles.
What's funny is goat milk is the closest to human milk, so that was a thing that I weaned to, right? But it's pigs or whatever that you can do transplants better. Yes.
But so he was also taking goat ovaries and implanting them in women.
Great.
I think he may have been putting the testicles in the women. I'm not entirely sure. He apparently came to believe this was a panacea. Goat testicles are good for everything.
I often say.
Really? Really?
No.
Let that absorb for a moment. Pun intended.
I'm assimilating it right now.
Can you just think, though? I'm not a man. I don't have testicles. But imagine, you've got your testicles, and now you've got a third ball in one of them.
So he didn't remove any.
I did not. He just added. It didn't say anything about removing them. He just implanted. So you've got an extra ball rolling out in this.
I'm picturing it right now.
It's not pretty. This is not a pretty part of the body anyway. But just now imagine it's swollen and there's a third. Anyway, maybe don't imagine that.
I'm pretty sure that's probably a condition that happens anyway, so you could totally Google the pictures.
Why would you say that? Why?
Some of us might want to Google the pictures.
Well, you may. I am not going to. I still think Facebook should ban people posting photographs of their wounds, like they've fallen and scraped their leg or they've had surgery. I'm like, I don't want to see that. Close-ups of the stitch.
I prefer the people who are picture in comments.
That's fine.
And I'm like, okay, because I might be curious about this thing, but I do not enjoy. I also, though, think you shouldn't be able to post dead animal pictures.
I would agree.
Because I have somebody who lives on a farm and will post those, and I'm just like, stop.
Yeah.
So they live, it's not an animal farm, but it's rattlesnakes that they killed and stuff. And I'm just like, stop it. I don't want to. I know that you think it's not a big deal, but it makes me sad to see a dead snake.
You don't even like snakes.
No, I love snakes. I'm phobic of them. Those are two different things. I find them fascinating, and I think that, like spiders, they're hated for the wrong reasons, but also people are phobic, and you can't help that.
The big thing now, have you seen them? You'll be watching some little reel or TikTok or whatever, some little video on social media, and all of a sudden a spider
the spider crawls on the face or whatever?
No, it's the spider jumps out of whatever, and it's like it lands on the screen.
Yeah, I've seen those.
And I'm like, y'all can go fuck yourselves. One of those jump scare fine. More than one, and I am a cranky old lady.
The video, I've been seeing a lot of reels where they play a prank on somebody because they have like whatever app it is will make a spider look like a spider's crawling on your face, and the person freaks out.
I have seen that, and that's
that's mean to do to people.
Yes, it is. Okay, so back to Brinkley and his goat glands. His lack of actual accredited medical training, plus a habit of operating while intoxicated, plus a lack of sterile environment led to lots of infections, and that's putting it mildly, and some deaths.
Yeah.
Between 1930 and 1941, he was charged with wrongful death more than a dozen times. And you've probably seen this, especially in Wikipedia. I'm always leery of more than amounts. Because if you say more than a dozen times, that could be 13. It could be 147. It's still accurate, technically. And I'm like, no, just tell me how many. Anyhow, let's go back to that first patient, that first goat gland patient. Shortly after, this man was so happy. This worked. He was married. And shortly after the operation, the patient's wife conceived and delivered a healthy baby boy.
Goat.
It was a boy. His name was Billy.
Oh, God.
Yes. Full pun intended. Brinkley used this as the advertising opportunity of a lifetime.
Except I imagine it didn't work, and he just happened to not actually be infertile, or maybe having somebody,
diddling
move some shit around down there. His body went, okay. Shit, sorry.
Anyhow, newspapers were eating that shit up. He began to tout ghost testicles.
Oh my gosh. That's...
I haven't made myself start laughing in a long time. Sorry, ghost testicles.
It just gets better every time.
Okay, so Brinkley began to tout goat testicles.
Okay, but let's study this for a second, because you can see the doctor being like, ghost testicles, folks. And then he goes in and he does the little surgery. If you got your stitches, and he has done fucking nothing except cut you open and pretend to put a ghost. So yeah, then I said it right. Testicle inside you.
He wouldn't even have to cut you. He would just have to put the stitch in, because who's going to look close enough to see if there's an actual incision?
Right.
You could just throw in a couple of stitches. I put the ghost testicle in.
You're like, just wait. It's going to be great.
It'll be magical. Anyhow, he said that it would capable of curing. Now I can't talk at all. Curing 27 different conditions, including
what?
Dementia. Emphysema. And flatulence.
You could put a testicle in the lung. Since he's just randomly putting testicles places, apparently.
Have you ever smelled a goat?
Yes.
Okay.
I've smelled goat milk too, and I did not enjoy that.
So I'm thinking, why would anyone think a goat testicle would cure flatulence? Just that one. Anyhow, with all the advertising and media coverage going on, finally, the AMA sent someone to investigate.
My goodness.
This person... Oh.
They're just all these people in town running around with goat testicles randomly voiced in their bodies at this point.
I can't find his name, but it'll
be
come.
An alien takeover.
The person found a woman in the clinic who had been given goat ovaries to treat a spinal tumor.
See, I wasn't wrong. You just randomly placing these things in there.
So that was enough to keep him under... He was on the AMA's radar, and he stayed there. For good reason. I mean...
You have a tumor on your spine, but good news.
We have goat ovaries.
Goat.
We have some goat glands.
Innards.
We have some goat bits left over.
I haven't been using the appendix. We're just going to put that in places.
So, as odd as this all sounds, Brinkley was not really an aberration. At the same time, a man named Sergei Voronov was transplanting monkey testicles into men.
That seems harder to get, but okay.
It seems like a monkey would be able to put up more of a fight than your average goat.
Well, also, where was he? If it was America, we don't exactly have monkeys running around.
There was a demo. I didn't even go into this story. The guy, Voronov, was doing a demonstration surgery, and Brinkley showed up. And then Brinkley's like, well, I'll do a demonstration. And yeah.
There's another dude, and he's eyeballing his cow.
It was a testicle off. I know.
Yes, it was.
So, in 1922, this is going to horrify
Some poor
you.
desperate person's like, do cockroaches have testicles? That's all I got.
In 1922, the owner of the LA Times invited Brinkley to visit LA to transplant goat testicles into one of his editors. You know when you take a job and you're reading your job description and it says other duties as assigned?
That's the one.
I'm like, how did he get a volunteer for this? Yes, I need you there. We need your scrotum.
I got something that's going to be so good. I just need to cut into your scrotum.
I just need to stick a third testicle in there.
Screening question. How many testicles do you currently have?
How many would you like to have?
How would you feel about an additional testicle?
So, the owner said if it succeeded, he would make Brinkley the most famous surgeon in America. But if it failed, he would be damned. Okay.
I hope thunder sounded right after he said it.
The man also pulled strings to get Brinkley a temporary permit, a 30-day permit to practice medicine in California. Because he didn't have solid credentials. And the California Medical Board was like, fuck no.
Tell you what, I don't think medicine has changed that much, but okay.
The operation was deemed a success, and Brinkley fell in love with LA. He was set. He was going to move to LA. He was going to relocate his clinic, but California refused to grant him a license to practice medicine there. Smart move. But something else did happen while he was in LA. The guy who owned the LA Times also owned a radio station, and Brinkley got to tour that. And he was immediately, when he went to this radio station, he just saw how this medium could be used for advertising, which was not done at that time. He vowed to start his own station and advertise his clinic, even though advertising on public airwaves was discouraged at that time. There are still laws, but there were more stringent laws about what you could and couldn't do on the radio back then. So in 1924, he built it. In 1924, I'm going to get this. He built KFKB with a 1 kilowatt transmitter. And this was his pulpit to display his personal triumphs and to brag about goat gland treatments. I'm never going to be able to say the word goat again after today.
I thought I said semen a lot. It was nothing.
I actually lived on Seaman Road. It was Seaman.
Yeah.
And calling for pizza was horrible. Where do you live? Seaman Road. No, really.
Is this a prank? Are you even going to pay me?
So we would call it See the Man Road. It's just like, except we went to the same pizza place all the time. So we would call them on a Friday night. It's Emmy and Ellen. What do you want? You want the white pizza this time? They knew us. I digress. Okay, so he built KFKB. Around the same time, Morris Fishbein, that was the man from the AMA. And the AMA were cracking down on diploma mills and quack doctors and bringing charges against them. However, when agents from California came to arrest Brinkley, Kansas Governor Jonathan M. David refused to extradite him because he was bringing so much money into the state. Brinkley continued to be beloved in Milford because, listen to this, he paid for a new sewage system and sidewalks. He installed electricity. He built a bandstand and apartments for his patients and employees, as well as built a new post office to handle all of his mail. He was named an admiral in the Kansas Navy, right, and sponsored a hometown baseball team called the Brinkley Goats. So at least they had a sense of humor.
Yeah, I mean, if it were called anything else, there would be something wrong with that.
Well, what would they call it? The Brinkley Testes?
Yes.
The goat glands.
The goat glands.
So what Brinkley wanted more than anything was legitimacy. So to get that, I know.
Like maybe you could actually work for legitimacy.
Maybe you could go to a real medical school. But instead he went to Europe and looked for a university that would give him an honorary degree, which was not that easy to do. But the University of Pavia in Italy obliged, although the degree was later revoked by Benito Mussolini. So Fishbein continued to target Brinkley and wrote many articles about the patients who got sicker or died after Brinkley's treatment. But these articles were published in journals that were mostly like the journal of
other doctors were reading it. Right.
JAMA. While Brinkley was continuing his onslaught on the radio station. And that's going out to everybody.
Yeah.
And to
the plebes.
Yes. In 1927, Brinkley and Minnie had another child, a son named John. So he was a fertile myrtle.
And he secretly implanted a goat testicle into himself.
That was a question at that time because apparently he was a little bit older. So people were like, oh, did you use it? And he was like, no, we had no need of the goat testicle.
No.
So
I spray children like a hose. It's fine.
He established a radio show called Medical Question Box, where people wrote in with medical questions and he would suggest treatments without ever having seen these people.
Uh-huh.
And all of the treatment involved his proprietary treatments. He had established a network of pharmacies, the Brinkley Pharmaceutical Association, which sold his over-the-counter remedies at inflated prices. The pharmacies would keep a cut and send the rest to him. So they were both profiting from it. It's estimated this was netting him $14,000 a week.
Wow.
And that's in those day terms, not modern day terms. So it was a lot of money.
A millionaire.
Merck Pharmaceuticals finally got tired of him misprescribing their medications and asked Fishbein for help. The AMA said all they could do was try to inform the public as they had no power to stop him. The Kansas City Star, which owned a competing radio station, ran a series of unfavorable articles on Brinkley. By 1930, Brinkley had signed death certificates for 42 patients, at least some of whom had not even been ill when they started at his clinic. The Kansas City Medical Board finally revoked his license to practice medicine. 6 months later, the Federal Radio Commission refused to renew his station's license because of all the infractions it had accrued, and it refused to change. One of his messages, a man is as old as his glands. All energy is sex energy. Of all afflictions that men are heir to, impotency is the worst.
Really? It's worse. It's worse than cancer.
Really, yeah.
It's worse than Alzheimer's.
Yep. All energy is sex energy. All restaurants are McDonald's. No, all restaurants are Taco Bell.
Taco Bell.
So, what do you think Brinkley did when they revoked his medical license?
Kept going?
No. 3 days after losing his medical license, he announced his candidacy for governor of Kansas. Because, now this was not as wacko as it is pretty fucking wacky, but he wanted to be able to appoint his own people to the medical board and get his license back. Some of his campaign promises included a state lake in every county, free textbooks for public schools, increased educational opportunities for blacks, lower taxes, and increased old age pensions.
How do you put a state lake in there?
I have absolutely no idea, but he courted the immigrant vote by putting German and Swedish speakers on his radio station. This was because there was 6 months before it was revoked. He hired a private plane and pilot to take him to public events. When a reporter questioned his credentials, Brinkley sent him a goat. So I'm thinking the man at least had some bit of sense of humor.
But
so because Brinkley was late to the race, I mean, this was like in September, he ran as a write-in candidate. And the attorney general, who had prosecuted Brinkley before the medical board, got the rules changed so that only very specific votes would count. It had to specify. It's a little distracting speaking with a tail in your face. But anyway, so the write-in, the vote had to say, the write-in vote had to say J.R. Brinkley. It couldn't say Dr. Brinkley. It couldn't say John Brinkley. It had to say J.R. Brinkley. This knocked out 30 to 50,000 ballots.
Yeah, you know why? Because people can't follow instructions.
No, that would have given him the win. It was later learned. Also, at the same time, he got 20,000 write-in votes for governor of Oklahoma.
Huh.
Yeah, didn't live there. Wasn't running there. Got 20,000 votes. He ran again as an independent in 1932, but lost. So since he couldn't practice medicine, he kept his clinic open by having two of his proteges run it. And he moved to the border town of Del Rio, Texas, having decided he was just done with Kansas. And thus began his involvement with Border Blaster Radio, which is another fascinating rabbit hole, but you'll have to go there without me. I'm going to badly summarize it because it's a big issue. Radio stations in countries with fewer regulations dominating the airwaves in neighboring countries, overpowering local stations. That's what a Border Blaster radio station is. So Brinkley went there. The Mexican government licensed him for a 50,000 watt station, and he began building XER, which had two 300-foot towers, which was just huge back in the day. So the broadcast was easily heard in Kansas. By 1932, the Mexican government allowed him 1 million watts, making it the most powerful radio station on the planet.
Wow.
On a clear night, it could be heard in Canada.
Wow. I can't even drive to Denver and keep a radio station in the 2020s.
Right? So the signal was so strong, it reportedly made bed springs hum, turned on car headlights, and bled over phone conversations. Ranchers said they could hear it through their metal fences and their dental appliances. And I'm wondering if that's where that came from. That whole, I got the radio station on my fillings.
Yep.
Not only did Brinkley continue to hawk his unquestionable cures, but he started selling advertising to anybody who could afford the rates. So there were all kind of quacks of all different stripes advertising on his airwaves because why not? The reach was fucking enormous.
Magnificent.
He also, one of the things I will say, he wasn't a completely bad person. He also gave airtime, as he did at his Kansas station, to up-and-coming artists, country artists and roots musical artists. And Del Rio became known for a while as Hillbilly Hollywood. And there were artists like Gene Autry and the Carter family, and lots more who I didn't recognize, who he gave their start. He gave them airplay. And because he reached so many people, everybody was hearing it. He continued his participation in broadcasting by phoning from his location in the U.S. to the Mexico station. Until Congress passed a law prohibiting studios in the U.S. from linking to transmitters in Mexico via phone, it was called the Brinkley Act, specifically targeting him.
Uh-huh.
He got around that by pre-recording his messages, pioneering that technology. In 1934, the Mexican government capitulated to U.S. demands and revoked his broadcast license. They actually sent the army to shut down the station.
Wow. Yeah.
So Brinkley's practice in Texas now focused on modified vasectomies. I'm not sure what that is. And prostate rejuvenations. I don't know what...
Rejuvenate my prostate.
Yes. and modify my vasectomy. He charged $1,000 per procedure. And of course, his own meds were prescribed for aftercare.
Uh-huh.
He had finally found success and opened a second clinic in San Juan, Texas. He built a mansion for his wife. He had a dozen Cadillacs. He had a greenhouse. He had elaborate gardens and fountains. He had exotic animals that were brought from the Galapagos. Didn't say what animals. I'm like, that I would like to know.
Right.
I don't know why.
And tortoises.
Yeah. And he had a pool with a 10-foot diving tower. That was apparently hot shit back then. A rival opened a similar clinic doing the same kind of procedures with lower prices. And he went to the town officials to get this other guy put out of business, and they refused to. So he moved to Little Rock. Because why not? In 1938, Fishbein came roaring back with articles questioning Brinkley's credentials. Brinkley sued for libel and lost, with the jury stating Brinkley, quote, should be considered a charlatan and a quack in the ordinary, well-understood meaning of those words, end quote. This opened the floodgates for a flurry of other suits and led to the IRS investigating him for tax fraud and the Postal Service investigating him for mail fraud. Because of all the suits against him and he had to pay, on May 26, 1942, Brinkley died penniless of heart failure. He had already suffered 3 heart attacks and had one of his legs amputated during to poor circulation. It didn't really say what happened to Minnie and his many, many children. He was buried in Memphis. There was a big statue. He had a monument and a big statue in Memphis, but I didn't write down the year. It was not, I want to say it was like in the 1990s.
Okay.
There were a series of robberies in Memphis where they stole statuary off graves. So that's gone now. But his mansion in Del Rio, Texas is a designated Texas Historic Landmark.
All right.
Because
I feel like the Texas Chainsaw Massacre houses too, so whatever.
Is it? Should be.
Nah, it's a bed and breakfast now, though, I think.
Oh, I would not stay there. And I will stay almost anywhere. So my sources for this were Thing 2, Wikipedia, the JSTOR website, Texas Archive of the Moving Image. And I feel like there were other places I looked at different articles and I just didn't write them all down. It was funny because one of the guys who wrote about him, he's talking with 2 associates, and one of the guy, they see a goat in the distance, and the guy goes, that fucking Brinkley. And he's like, well, here's this mild-mannered man just frothing about someone I don't know over a goat. And he's like, this guy wanted to listen to specific radio programs, and he never could because he lived close enough to the border that that radio station just washed out everything.
Oh, that sucks.
It did that all the way to stations in Chicago.
Ugh.
It just, can you imagine? You can only listen to this guy.
I don't understand how he got that granted. Like, that's insane.
It's
like a sound bomb.
He was willing to pay for it. There was an issue because there was something, I can't remember the exact name, something about the North American radio something. And what they did was they divided up the frequencies. Guess what? It was North American, using air quotes, but they did not grant any frequencies. They didn't allow for any frequencies in Mexico. And the Mexican government was pissed off. So they saw this as a way to, all right, fuck with us. We will fuck right back.
Okay.
And they did.
Right.
And then they just let him get bigger and bigger. I don't think they were probably paying any attention.
Right.
It's like, this guy wants to give us more money to let him build a bigger station. Okay.
Alrighty, let's do it.
Sounds good. But the 1,000,000 watts, I was like it was the most powerful radio station on the planet.
Seriously, there's one radio station I get from Denver.
I don't
know if they're like piping it through one down here too, and that's why, because we have our Cheyenne Mountain
yes.
towers. But one station that I know of that otherwise you drive and part way there, it's gone.
Usually it's Castle Rock.
Yeah.
where everything down here cuts out and you have to switch over to Denver stations.
Yeah. And then it's just gone. And that's fine because I don't want a 1,000,000-watt thing.
Because then there's only one station.
That would be like in Kansas, that would just be a religious station at this point. If they had one that was 1,000,000 watts that you had no choice but to listen to.
It would be religious and farm reports.
Yep.
And old country music. We have listened to, because Thing One lives in Kansas. And everybody knows I'm a big radio person in the car. Because I like hearing the local stuff. I like hearing the farm reports and the weather and, oh my God, there's a tornado coming. I want to know this. And you know what? XM radio, they don't give a shit if there's a tornado or not. But we found driving in Kansas, there's a space where we can't really pick up any FM stations, but flip over to AM.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's a little grainy, it's got a little static, but we get oldie stations and we will hear music and go, oh my God, when is the last time you heard this song?
Yeah.
And they're not bad songs, but it's shit you haven't heard in decades.
Right. Sometimes it's shit I've just never heard.
Sometimes, yes.
Because what? Because it wasn't popular enough to be. Well, my mom was watching some channel and it had, she still got Dish or something like that. I don't remember. And so there are music channels and it'll just play music and it'll show stills.
Yep.
Of the bands and stuff like. So I heard some new ones on that. She knew all of them, but I'm like, well, I was born in 1977 and this is playing from 1940. So it really wasn't playing the 60s. But yeah, that was interesting.
It always is.
It's kind of, you can't help but watch when they're changing pictures like that, you know? Well, you're just staring at the TV waiting to see what the next picture of this band is. Because I haven't seen those bands in person.
Yeah.
I haven't seen them. I'm trying to remember who they had the goofiest photos, and it was a group like Beach Boys or something like that.
That could be.
I think it was the Beach Boys that kept playing, and then there was a guy who looked just like somebody else. Now I don't remember, but it was a whole topic of conversation on its own when pictures came up.
There's something about when I'm driving through Kansas or someplace small, listening to a farm report. Do I want to listen to them all day? No. But now and then it's good to remember, these are important to people.
Yeah. No, I will put on something streaming or a CD and be perfectly happy when I'm traveling because then my music won't cut out.
I will say when I'm traveling with other people and they want to do that, I'm fine with it. I'm not, but if I'm driving, I would like to hear some local stuff once in a while. We used to love it when we went to Buena Vista in the fall on a Friday night. And we wouldn't listen to the whole game, but to turn on the radio and hear some of the high school football game.
Oh, wow.
That's small town.
Yeah, it is.
Oh, and it's so much fun. You're hearing the crowd and the announcers are so enthusiastic and, it's just.
I can't also listen to talking things when I'm driving. I
get that.
I don't want to. I can't listen to a book on tape. I can't listen to.
If I listen to a book on tape, I go right to sleep.
Right?
Which is dangerous if you're driving. So.
We did, when the kids were younger, we'd try and do it, but I was like, it only had to be when Jeff was driving because I cannot for the life of me drive with talking shit happening. I can't process both things at once. I don't want to. I need music. The music keeps me from getting quite so aggressive. Now, if you think I'm aggressive when driving with music on, you should see me when my radio goes out.
I've been in the car with you many times. Once when you were stopped. And I'm like, I shudder to think of you being more aggressive. I will fucking sing.
I am.
If we run out of music, I'm going to start singing.
There needs to be music. So, yeah.
I will play the kazoo. I will hum. I will do something.
Well, my current radio will just freeze up and lock down. And sometimes it'll be stuck on the music. And so that's fine. I won't be able to get a map if my GPS was running or something. Then that's dead. But sometimes it completely shuts down and there's no music and I can't switch it because it's a screen thing.
In which
it's
vehicle?
In my Jeep. I know. No. So there's a wiring issue. And so then I'm driving and I'm like, I can't do this. I need my music. Now I have to kill the person in front of me. This is how you start.
I remember we discovered books on tape and we were on some long road trip and I would wake up and go, what happened? Because oh my God. Yeah, it puts me right to sleep. Maybe I should start listening to books on tape to go to sleep at night.
Maybe you should. I heard that Matthew McConaughey has like a sleep thing out there where he talks to put you to sleep. And I was reading the women's responses, of course, and they're like, I'm not going to be wanting to sleep. It's going to, that's not the reaction I will have.
I think it would be very aggravating to listen to Matthew McConaughey when you're trying to go to sleep.
They played a piece of it, and he's actually really good at doing this kind of soft, and then he, of course, has that kind of lilting accent.
Yes, he does.
He has one of the better Texas accents.
Mm-hmm.
And I can see why it's intended to be soothing, and he does, because he's such like kind of a hippie, right? Like, and
he does have a very laid back kind of vibe.
So that's what he sounds like. He's just kind of chilling and talking. Because, oh man, I forget. I love the Graham Norton show. I wish I could like get the actual full show every Friday and I would watch that shit. And it's been a long ass time since I wanted to watch any kind of talk show.
I love Graham Norton.
Yeah, so I just watched clips. And it was somebody on there, some big star too, who was like, I go to sleep to your... That's how I heard about it.
Oh, wow.
He was like, seriously, you saved my sleep. But, who is it? Because he's married to, I believe, a Latina woman. Because he was like doing her voice. And he was like, that man is talking again. And don't know who it is. There's plenty of the stars that are married to Latino women. So, but yeah, he was, and McConaughey was on that episode with him. So he was telling me, he was like, seriously, I have like insomnia problems, and you talking has got me sleeping.
He gets people to tell the most horrific stories about
the
themselves.
most embarrassing things.
And they're like, I can't believe you know about that. Here's what really happened.
How does he find out? Sir Patrick Stewart, something about his, was he cut because he thought he was circumcised or something. His wife was like, newsflash, you're not. And he was like, what? Yes, I am. I would know if I was. And then he went to doctor. The doctor was like, you are not. And he was like, what? I think that was his story. And I was like, wow.
I remember hearing that.
Yes. So it's stuff like that. It's excellent.
I have had or been party to, been on the periphery of conversations with women who are well old enough to know, who have said, I can't tell if my boyfriend is circumcised or not.
Maybe there's some men who have like a really trim, like, I don't know how you can't tell.
And my response has always been, as I get older, I get crankier. Who the fuck cares? I don't want to spend my evening out talking about your husband's dick. I don't care if he's circumcised or not.
I'm still like, how do you not?
I was like, you have seen plenty of those, ma'am.
Yeah. In America, most are still circumcised, yes, if you're talking about adults.
Yeah. And I was just like, this woman has, like I said, I'm not casting aspersions, just she's seen a healthy amount of them.
Right. I'm just puzzled. Okay. Like, all right. Would you like me to check for you? What answer do you want from me when you're bringing this up about your husband?
Like a bunch of women, and we're at dinner, and nobody was talking about sex. Wow, I can't tell if, and a lot of these women knew her boyfriend. And I was like, I don't think he would appreciate knowing that.
Yeah, I really dislike it when friends tell me about their husband's penises in any way. One of them told me that his was super tiny, and I could not for the life of me get that out of my head when I was around him because I felt bad for him. He was like 6.5 feet tall, and it was so I would just, it would pop into my head, and I was like, God damn it. Why did you tell me that? Why?
I don't know.
So, yeah.
I have a story about that, but I don't think I'm going to tell that on the podcast.
Okay.
Only because it casts two people in a very bad light, and I'm one of them.
All right. Fun. And the thing is, like, I get that I'm super honest and shit just comes out. But I have to say a lockdown on talking to anybody in a way that I feel would make my husband uncomfortable if he were to find out I told somebody that, know, that's his business.
Yes.
Don't tell me about your tiny penis husband. And I'm sorry, I guess, but you made that choice and you had sex with him before you got married. And in that case, at least. And I'm like, so... you dug that grave, I guess I'm telling you.
And I
hope that you have fun with toys. Just like, why?
You're like, they sell those on Amazon now.
That's right. You can get jumbo-sized ones if you want. Do that. And stop talking to me about it.
Some woman posted, was it in...
And I don't have a problem talking about sex, obviously, because I don't have a problem talking about many things. But I'm like, yeah, I don't want to know about this human being I'm going to have to be around.
Yes.
I don't like knowing other people's secrets if they don't know I know their secrets.
And you know what? If he has hemorrhoids, I don't want to know that either.
No. Let's just not discuss that.
Yeah.
Unless it's going to lead to a great story, then tell me the great story.
Yes.
Then I'm cool with it. If it's part of a great story.
There's a really good story.
If you're just randomly telling me this, I don't want to know about it.
No. I'm always shocked when people tell you the unflattering things about their spouse, and you're just like, I one time with someone stuck my fingers in my ears and went, la, 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 I can't hear you, till she stopped talking about it. Because I was just like, I don't need to know this about that person.
No, because if I ever have to be around that person, especially since I'm not that much, the few things you've told me are going to be what I think about when I'm around that person.
So, one time, I was at work, and it was around the time the movie Dances with Wolves comes out.
Uh-huh.
And everybody was talking about, what would your Indian name be?
Oh, God.
Right?
It would be stabs you in the face. Next question.
That would be your And the woman who was working at the front desk, there was a bunch of us standing there, and she informed us her boyfriend was someone who worked for the company, high up. And she said, well, his Indian name would be Comes in Two Strokes.
Oh.
And the thing was, I'm pretty sure if you had somehow been able to poll people, they would have guessed that anyway.
She didn't seem very satisfied?
No, he just...
Was she wearing her period panties all the time? Ooh, a callback!
I know! If only we could find a way to get goat glands back in here.
Well, I feel like Two Strokes could use a goat testicle, so...
Perhaps.
Maybe it would fix that.
It would be a virility issue.
Stick it right in the shaft.
But I couldn't believe someone would sit there and say that about their partner.
Right. Especially, you're not even married. Why are you still bothering then if the sex is bad?
Yeah, to a group of people who work for him. I just...
Yeah, then you're really going to you're at work and he walks in and you're like, God damn it. Count to 2 while he talks.
So yeah, that was fun. But I can't. Yeah, sometimes people will just tell you oh yeah. I have a habit though. It's a talent. I don't know why. I ask people about something that they've been longing to talk about for apparently quite some time, and I just ask the right question,
and then out it comes.
Like, so where did you go to college? All this horrible, long, involved story comes out about whatever.
I have a talent for strangers to just tell me. Like, I posted it, but somebody told me they were an illegal alien in Mexico. I don't know. Where did I say? From Argentina?
Yes.
Yes. And I was like, don't tell people that, madam. I'm not going to tell anybody, but you don't know. So, and she told me how she did it. So now I know how to illegally immigrate to Mexico. It's great.
Well, from Argentina.
I might have to. It was all through the same... she did it as visiting as a tourist. So I'm not going to tell y'all how to do it. It might end up in a book. But yeah, I was like, okay. Because I was trying to find... I thought she was legal. And so since that is a place we have considered moving,
yes,
at least part-time or whatever, I was like, what was... that was the question I asked. What was the immigration process like for you? Was it hard? Were there a lot of hoops to jump through? And I have learned now you do not ask that question unless somebody brings up that they legally immigrated somewhere, because then she was in a position to be like, well, I didn't do it. You know, it was through Mexico City. So now I know that too. She was like, you come in through a bigger city. Yeah, because they're going to be flooded with stuff. So...
I've heard not good things about Mexico City, about visiting Mexico City.
Really? I mean, Charisse went there all the time. That was the city she primarily went to, I think, was
but
Mexico
not
City.
Lately.
No.
I've heard that it's very crime-filled lately.
Well, it's the big...
Right. Yeah, it is, but...
So, it makes sense. Everywhere it is. Like, if you talk to somebody about Denver, they're like, it's crime-filled. I mean, I got offered drugs multiple times in Playa del Carmen. So, I'm just... I waited for it. I think it was the second day we were there. And you want drugs? Cocaine? Marijuana? And I was like, no.
Thank you.
No, sir. If I want them, I'll ask you for them.
Do you have some antacids?
Yes. Do you have Pepto? I'm going to need that later.
Antiemetics.
Yes. I really was upset when I was like, I could have gotten antiemetics, a few hours into this shit. But poor husband woke up alone because I had gone downstairs where there was an indoor bathroom. Because we locked out, there's wooden shutters and stuff, and you lock them down. We were there during the tropical storm, which was fun. I was weirdly excited to be there during the hurricane. But it was just tropical storm because I haven't been in them since I was a kid. Mm-hmm. And then we were so far up north. Only 2 ever came up that high in Maryland, but they did. And they're calling them hurricanes, but I was kind of curious. Were they just not using tropical storm then? Now that we're in this age where we really classify every damn thing, that now they make that a difference?
That could be.
Because I feel like they should have just been tropical storms, but the wind was strong enough for me as an elementary schooler to open my jacket and get blown backwards. That was fun. That's what I did because they still had us go to school. They didn't close school when the tropical storm was hitting. Then they were like, oh shit, this is bigger than we thought. So then they send us home in the middle of the tropical storm because intelligence doesn't change either. And so, we're walking and you're leaning into it.
Yeah.
And that's way up north in Maryland. But I mean, where it was sandy, but it happens. But 2 of them. And I was like, they were kind of exciting when you're a kid, right? You're not worried about damage to your house or whatever.
Yes.
So then I was like, because I was also not worried about damage to my house.
True.
I was staying in an Airbnb. So that was fun. It was super windy. Nothing closed.
That's the
There was still there's this club and you can hear it from where we are. Then they go late into the night and it's just, you hear the announcer and then you'd hear everybody go, woo! Every little once in a while. And that was going most of the way into that evening. And then they shut down a little bit early and I was like, oh, this must mean the storm's getting good, right? And then they were just back the next day, like nothing while it was still. That was fun. I enjoyed it.
I am glad that you had fun.
Also, I was high, so high up, not high. I did not take the drogas. And I would have been above tsunami level. So I was also pleased about that. The iguanas would not have been.
No.
Yes.
I had a friend who was visiting California when they had their tsunami warning. Last week. Yes. Whatever.
When I was gone. So it's been, because it was when...
I think
it was right around,
week. So it was Frida. She was out there with her husband and somebody said, welcome to California, buckle up. There's a tsunami warning.
Yeah, it was all the way up the coast in Oregon too. So, and then they had a bomb cyclone, which we've had in relation to snow, but theirs was not snow. Bomb cyclone, they are comparing to the Columbus Day storm is what it's called. I had heard of it. That's how big a storm it was. And my grandma had pictures of the aftermath in her stuff. So everybody was like, holy shit. It didn't end up being that bad, but it came at the same time as the king tides, which are like these big.
Oh.
So I was a little sad. I missed that because that's when I was in Mexico. So it was the weekend that my aunt's funeral was. But she's not on the coast. But my mom and sister went out there for the service and they stayed on the coast a couple days, right? And I was like, I just want to see the king tides and I want to see them during a bomb cyclone. It was amazing. Mom was like, they were huge. You would have loved it. Just crashing up. And there's this little town I love called Depot Bay. And it's big for people being able to see the waves and whales and stuff because there's the bridge that kind of runs along there downtown. I say in quotes because there isn't one. It's just a stretch along the highway that people are taking to the bigger cities. And so they have all these shops and restaurants to try and get some of that tourist money.
Right.
But you're also driving right there. There's the ocean on this kind of inlet. And it's the smallest harbor in the world or something like that. I don't remember. It's famous for something like that. So you can watch all the ships come in and the Coast Guard and stuff like that. So you can get splashed there when the tides are high. Well, the tide was shooting up so high, it was crossing that little highway and like hitting the storefronts on the other side. And I was like, that would have been amazing. And so people who didn't know better standing there were getting absolutely soaked and like knocked off their feet and stuff.
That would be dreadful if you owned the shops. Depending on how much water was coming over.
Yeah, I don't think it was like to the harmful extent.
Okay. But yeah, that would be, oh my God, watching something like that.
Mm-hmm. In a familiar place.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I was a little, like there was part of me that was a little sad that I wasn't there, but.
Sad that you were in Mexico throwing up your toenails.
That's right. Yes. We've talked about today testicles, vomiting, semen, goat testicles, because we talked about human also, penis size. Just to summarize
goat
some
glands,
of the things we've talked about today.
Marital stuff.
Have you watched anything good lately?
Have I? Well, I did. Yes, I watched Red One.
Okay, I did see it streaming on Prime. So.
Yes, so by the time this comes out, everybody will have already watched it and forgotten about it. But it was cute. I kind of liked it.
Yeah, we're gonna watch it on one of our movie nights. Movie nights.
Have I talked to you since I watched Boy Kills World?
No.
Okay. So a friend of mine was talking. Actually, two different friends of mine were talking about the movie If, Imaginary Friend. Mm-hmm. With Ryan Reynolds and what's his ass? The sexiest
There's a
man
few
alive.
asses, but yeah.
The sexiest man alive.
Like currently?
Yeah. He's married to Emily.
Yeah. Krasinski.
Yeah, John Krasinski. So, two different people had told me about If. And I thought, I'm going to watch If. So I watch If. And If, to me, I'm sorry if I'm insulting anybody. To me, it was a gigantic missed opportunity because it could have been a far better movie than it was. I don't think it used a single person on the cast to their capabilities.
Okay.
It just wasn't, I don't know. It just didn't hit for me. If you liked it, more power to you. I wouldn't, dismiss anyone who liked it. I didn't think it was that good.
I can't tell you. Like I watched it, but so I feel like I was just neutral on it. It didn't make me angry.
Yeah, it didn't make me mad. It just left me disappointed. Okay. So after I watched that, it was on a Saturday, and I thought to myself, I need to watch something. So one of those friends had also told me he was taking his boys to see Boy Kills World. Uh-huh. I thought, well, I never heard of that. So I pull it up. It's on, I think it was on Hulu. And it stars the guy who played... It. Yes, It. One of the Skarsgårds.
Yeah.
Okay. That movie was so good.
Oh, really? I haven't watched it yet.
Violent. It's that gory, violent thing that I sometimes have to turn away. But the thing is, the main character can't hear and he can't speak.
Right. So, wait, I did watch it. It was good.
I found so many little things in that movie so friggin' funny. And the voiceover, the guy doing the voiceover
oh my God.
Is from what, Bob's Burgers?
Yeah. My husband actually, it drove him nuts, that voice. Because he just couldn't.
Yeah, some people like it and thought it was like, because I
was amused at how unlike a Skarsgård that voice was.
Yes.
But it did become distracting from the story for me for the ridiculous voice. I was like, your joke is lasting too long.
Okay. But the part where he couldn't understand the guy with the beard, the things that the interpretations, so he reads lips. So there's this guy with a big beard and he's speaking and the words the guy is saying, it's word salad.
Like,
and
what now?
Hilarious.
Yes, that part was funny.
And the part where the specter of his little sister says, act chefy. So he has a piece of cheese and a grater, and he's walking along just randomly grating things. Act Sheppy. And he's like standing in a hallway grating cheese. I fucking laugh. I don't know why. Now there's another scene following that where he's fighting using the cheese grater.
Oh, yes. Oh.
I'm not going to talk about that. I will say that.
I feel like that's all you need to say. People can picture it from there.
Because but there were a couple times in that scene, I just had to look away from the screen.
Yeah, I think we made some noises. You know, like,
I made the same noises. I'm sitting there watching it by myself going,
oh God.
Ew.
Creative.
Yeah, I thought it was very, very creative. And
because I have grated like a finger.
Oh, we've all.
And it hurts.
It
like
does.
Crazy.
It does.
Because it hits you just right. Yeah. So we all know that. Now imagine that on a much wider spectrum.
Yep. Oh.
And an intentional hard one.
Yeah, it was I thought that movie was well done. It just it was more lively. It was more interesting just on a whole to me.
I watched something and the problem is I can't remember what it was called. It has the bad guy from Killing Eve, but it was a BBC show. And it was, I believe the name of it was Her Age when she was taken. So It's about a girl who, at the beginning, you see her basically escaping the captor's house that she has been in for however many years. Mm-hmm. And so it's like 13 or something. It's a number. And it's all about like It gets frustrating for a while, but then they start making you doubt her story, and then it was just really well done. Ooh. And I believe it was before the show Killing Eve, which has Sandra Oh, and then there's the blonde woman who's the sociopath. It's her that's playing the girl. Yes. Oh,
that sounds good.
So, and she's a good actress. She's one of my daughter's favorite now actresses, but because we watched Killing Eve together, and she just loved how sadistic she was, like, and just her lack of emotion about some things, like just doing these terrible things and being like, so what?
Nikki just finished reading American Psycho.
Yeah.
Which I've never read.
Oh, I have, but it's been a while.
I didn't feel any need to read it.
They're remaking it. And I'm like, they got really the point of it with Patrick Bateman with the movie they made with Christian Bale, but okay.
So she messaged me and said, because of course, as we're recording this, it is mid-December. She said, hey, when I'm home for Christmas, do you want to watch the movie with me? And I was like, no, thank you. And she's like, oh, I thought a movie night would be fun. I said, a movie night would be great. I would love to watch a movie with you, but I said, when it came out, I didn't watch it because I knew that I would not enjoy it. I said, I'm pretty sure I still would not enjoy it.
Got you. I enjoyed it enough that I bought it on DVD, so at the time, but I mean, it's twisted. He's twisted.
I don't know why. There was something about it that just made me think, no, I would leave the experience just feeling awful. So
yeah, I mean, he's butchering these women and poor women, and they did say that the remake is supposed to stick more closely to the book. So
I also watched another holiday movie, Dear Santa, or Letter to Santa, where the kid actually sends the letter to Satan
because he's
sent to Jack Black.
We watched it, and I at one point I said, this smacks of contractual obligation. Mm-hmm. Even Keegan-Michael Key can make anything better.
He can, but it was a very tiny...
But he was a tiny island in that movie.
The choking on the pistachios was...
But why was he eating them? He's just...
He could not stop. And then when he gets up to leave, he takes
more.
And I'm like, here's what I didn't get in that scene. Why did they ask him, do you want a glass of water? Why did they not just get up and get him a fucking glass of water?
So I watched a clip, and it's from some movie he's in with John Cena. And it seems like he does shit to make the people break in the scenes that he's in with, which I would break in like 2 seconds. Because basically I see Keegan-Michael Key at this point, and I'm like, yeah, kind of like,
yes,
I do the same thing with the younger Levy.
Yes, Dan.
Yes, Dan. He like that man's just his presence, and I'm like, oh my God, I'm so happy already.
Yes,
and I'm already laughing at you. But so it's some clip, and he's doing hysterical crying, and Senna's supposed to keep like this straight face, and he just keeps building, and He never looks at him, but you know he's got him in his peripheral vision, seeing that he's breaking, and he just keeps bloody going. And I almost shared it, and I was like,
oh, I wish you had, because I love that.
Yes. But yeah, even I was like, Jack Black, there were funny moments, but
yeah,
the acting was horrendous.
It's not a classic. Like Red One, I could watch again. I could watch that at Christmas time.
Yeah, my most recent
Dear
Christmas,
Santa,
like over the last few years, new Christmas classics are like Violent Night and Fat Man. So they're both two very violent action flick, but they're good, and we can watch them every year. Is one of those
the one with David Harbour?
Yes, another one has Mel Gibson, which I know some people probably don't watch, but it's actually a really good kind of gritty
I haven't seen that
movie.
one, but I've wanted to.
It's gritty. And I love his wife. Like Mrs. Claus in that one is worth everything, and the elves are great, but there's something about her that's just like, on the one hand, comforting, but she's also a badass.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
I do like that.
Yeah. It's good. But yeah, other than that, I've been watching like House of Villains and stuff like that.
Yeah, that reminded me. I was going to tell you something else I watched, and now it's gone. I'm like trying to flog my brain, and my brain is just saying, fuck off.
Yeah. I've apparently accidentally been on a bit of a BBC kick, but mostly because I've been so busy recently, I just start Tubi and it auto-plays shit for a long time for me because it doesn't ask me, are you still watching?
I did watch, what was it? Jason Diaz watched the other night, Dracula 2000.
Oh yeah, it's been a long time. We have that on DVD.
With a young Gerard Butler.
Yeah, I don't remember.
As Dracula. I didn't recognize, if he hadn't told me that, he was so young and so pretty, I didn't recognize him. Okay. Not that he's not, don't get me wrong, he's a very attractive man, but he was just, there was no character in his face yet. He was so young. But who else was in that? I just had a bunch of...
I've had a lot of moments watching the Tubi show where I'm like, oh my God, that person, I didn't know that person was here. We saw, there's like the big guy from Roadhouse. That's one of the people that works with them as a bouncer. And he popped up in an old John Belushi movie that I had seen before, but it had been ages, that I watched last night. And we were like, oh my
God. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. I've been watching, I haven't watched it much lately, but I'm working my way through Castle. It's easy and soothing to have on in the background when I'm doing something, because the mysteries, air quote mysteries, are very repetitive.
Yes, that's why I stopped. I never finished that show, but I also didn't finish Bones. I didn't finish Criminal Minds. I got really tired of the formulaic thing, and then I gave up. Even though I was like, I like the character. NCIS I didn't finish.
Yep.
I feel like that's still going.
I just had a conversation with my sister-in-law because we got talking about the fact that I had the last season of Blacklist on my DVR for, I would say it had to have been 2 years after the series ended and went off the air. I said, so when I finally saw the ending, I said, nobody was talking about it anymore. And I said, God damn it, I wanted to talk to people. So she and I talked about it because she had watched the ending. It was so very busy. Did you watch that?
I watched probably a few episodes and just couldn't get into it for whatever reason.
It got weird in the middle in a lot of spots. But it's like they, and a lot of shows do this. They draw viewers in with a particular premise, and then they just chuck it out the window and start doing something else that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
And viewers are going, what the actual Supernatural.
Yeah. As soon as they went Angels and Demons instead of Monster of the Week, I was like,
yes, why?
This isn't what I wanted to watch. I don't want to watch a religious discussion. It was very different from Monster of the Week.
Yes. But so Castle, I like the characters. I still am keeping up with the new Equalizer with Queen Latifah.
Oh,
because I love her.
Matlock with Kathy Bates.
Love it.
I just remember I forgot to go back and watch the next episodes because live television doesn't work for me anymore. I have to wait a week. No, I need to binge watch this and then I will be fine. So, but she's excellent in that. Because I was like, she is. She switches between this confident person who's got this plan and, I'm just a silly, brainless old lady, like seamlessly, right? Because it's Kathy Bates. First of all, who can do anything. I found on Tubi, and it's in my queue now, some movie where she and Danny DeVito play like crazy parents together. And I was like, oh God, those two like bouncing off each other has to be magnificent. So I'm going to watch
Let me know.
Yeah. It's got Ron Livingston and Nev Campbell in it. So it's like 90s, I guess, or early 2000s. But I was like, what is this? And then I see them pop up all ridiculous. And I was like, oh no. That's cute.
Sometimes people are like, hey, have you ever seen, or I see people are watching something. I'm like, I'm going to go watch that right now. And just...
Yep. All right. So we have talked plenty.
Oh, we have.
And so
we were worried we wouldn't have enough to talk about without
It's true, or that we needed more stories, because last time we did 2 each. And so I feel that we should tell people that we are both writing for something called Rocky Mountain Reader. That is free to read online. And there are book reviews. There are articles and essays about reading related stuff. To be clear, this isn't for authors.
It's for readers. And it focuses on Colorado, both writers that are in Colorado and stories that are set in Colorado.
Yep. So you can discover some new books with that. And we're both writing for that now. So it's really good. And again, it's free and
comes out once a week on Thursdays. Check it out, because I'm having fun with it.
Me too.
Reading some stuff I wouldn't have read otherwise.
Exactly. I've read several things that To Die Pretty was a really good book if people want to read it, but you have to be in the mood because it's rough, because it's about the Nazi occupation of the Netherlands. So, and some people who fought that, specifically women who fought back. But, you know, nobody gets out unscathed. So
nobody gets out of here alive.
That's right. But, it was so good. And I never would have found that book otherwise.
No.
But we get a list. Yeah. Every little once in a while, hey, I have these books.
Hey, yes, I need somebody to do these books. All right. And we all write in as fast as we can.
Right?
I want this, this.
One. So I've missed a couple.
I have as well.
So
I'm waiting because I saw her last week or a little over a week ago. I saw her on a Friday, and it was a week ago today, Sunday night. I'm like bopping around, I'm doing stuff, and all of a sudden I went, I do not feel well. It was just that, and I thought, okay, because sometimes you get that oogie, thick feeling,
and then it kind of goes away.
Yeah, and you're like
fighting something.
Maybe I just need it. No, I was fighting it and I lost.
Okay,
so Monday I had to go to an insurance appointment. Fuck insurance. And I got home and I was there. It was the day it snowed, so that was fun. Because apparently, despite every weather outlet in the state saying it's going to snow in Colorado Springs tonight, the city decided they didn't need to do anything about that. Right. So, but the office that I went to was cold. It just was they didn't have the heat turned up very high. So I got chilled, and then by the time I drove home, I was so cold. First I had the heating pad. Joe went and got me the heating pad. First I sat with it on my back. Then I just sat on the heating pad. Then I decided I was going to marry the heating pad. Then I had it on my feet. Then I laid it, because it was an extra long one, I laid it out on the couch and curled up on it and slept on it. I napped. And Joe came upstairs. He's like, are you okay? Uh-huh. Because I would wake up, wipe the drool off my chin, and go back to sleep. Yeah. It wasn't deep sleep, but that's how I had a fever the whole...
Yeah. Oh, I had a fever with the
oh my God.
stomach bug too. That's how I knew it was like a real thing.
Ew.
And fevers do me in because I have like a lower temp. And so I tend to start reacting to a fever around 99.
Yep.
But yeah, man, that's what I started to say. Jeffrey woke up. I wasn't up there. He comes downstairs. I'm lying on the sofa with an ice pack on my stomach, which, by the way, is a trick I learned from after a dental surgery, because anesthetic makes me
nauseous,
vomit terribly.
Oh,
not just nauseous.
Oh, okay, beyond nauseous.
Yes. So that's a thing I have to tell them now, and they have to do certain things and put actual anti-emetic stuff in with the. Oh. But when I was being sick, they put an ice pack like right on that top part of my stomach where it hurts when you're sick like that. And it kind of helps like calm it down and ease a little bit. It doesn't stab it clearly, but
good to know.
Yes. They also put my feet up. I did not do that. My feet were actually dangling off the end because it wasn't an actual sofa. It was 2 chairs pushed together, and it hurt to be where the wood frames met. So I was half off of the sofa with an ice pick on there. That's when he came downstairs to me. He was like, oh my God, what's happening? Right? So yeah, it just made me. So anyway, when I was a teenager, I used to, when I'd get up, I would get up and do the bare minimum, brush my teeth. I wouldn't even brush my hair, and it was down to my waist, okay? Oh, so we'd get tied back. I would grab a Coke and an apple and stick them in my backpack, and that was going to be my breakfast and lunch. And then I would set the timer, and after my backpack was all packed and everything, and I would lie down in the heat vent until the microwave timer went off, and then I would walk to the bus stop. And then in my first class, I would sit there and brush my hair and drink my Coke and eat my apple. I just carried my brush around because I wore my dad's military field jacket at the time. And so my brush would be sticking out. Like you asked my Christine hairdresser / friend that also does your hair. She hated that brush. It was falling apart because I had gotten it when I was about 6 years old in Oregon. And I was still using it. And the paint had chipped off of the wood because it was a wood base. And she was just like, you need to get, I'm going to steal that brush. I'm going to break it. I'm going to throw it. She never did because that would have been wrong. But
yes.
And I kept like an eyeliner and a lipstick in my pocket. And that was, I didn't have a purse. I had my field jacket. That's what I had all the time. Cigarettes were in a different pocket that I kept in like a tin because they were the ones I bummed off people. So
of course.
Because I couldn't buy them and I wasn't going to go be all illegal while I was being illegal.
Well, yes. There are ways
that just
to go
made me
about
think
this.
of that, the heating pad. And I would just curl up on the heat vent.
I can remember as a kid when I would have on a long flannel nightgown standing over the register vent because that thing just billowed out and people, and of course, if you have a lot of step siblings, they might be like, you're hogging the fucking heat. Yeah. Yes, I am.
Yes, I am. And I was here first. I would also do that if I had a nightgown, but I would sit with my knees up like this, yes. And then you pull it over your knees, and you created this whole huge, your own heat.
Have you seen the reels on social media where they have a sweatshirt on and they stick their legs out the arms of their...
Oh, yeah.
And they walk around. And there's one woman who's stuck, and she can't get out because your arms are like crossed in front of you so you can fit your... legs out the arms of your sweatshirt, and you have the sweatshirt pulled down, and she's filming herself, and she's like, I don't know what I'm going to do. My children are asleep and I'm trapped. I mean, it looks hilarious. It looks like, do you remember Mum and Chance?
No.
It was like a mime troupe, and they would do weird stuff like that.
Okay.
But it looks like some kind of a spider almost when you have your legs, and it's like, where'd their arms go?
What's happening? Your brain just kind of goes twitch.
Yeah, and I'm so tempted to try it, but I'm like, no, I would get stuck. I'm not that flexible anymore. I'd like to think I am. Maybe after water aerobics, some night I'll go home and try it, but no. Just cold, I'm like...
Make sure there's somebody else in the house.
Yeah, Joe would come upstairs and I'd be just lying there sobbing.
I could see Jeff just walking in if I was doing this and then turning around and walking out. He's so used to me doing weird shit. Yep. He just rolls, or just sitting next to me and turning on the TV or something, you know?
Yes.
Like, what's happening? I don't know.
Nothing.
I learned that I think cats have an uncanny valley as well. And I think it was with mice, though, because I have this fake mouse, and it well and truly freaks out because it's supposed to have real, like, mouse sounds recorders that makes the squeaks. And if you throw it or move it, and it'll squeak. Mm-hmm. And my cats, who are mousers, freak the fuck out. Huh. So if they're scratching the furniture or something, I should just start chucking that at them. But they'll like arch up and move around it, and I'm like, what? Oh, you're like, this is like a mouse, but not a mouse.
Oh, interesting.
So I feel it's an uncanny valley.
It sounds like it.
Yes.
All right. Like it.
So as we head out,
yes,
it might be longer than Patrick's episode. We don't know. I think it's a little longer. He was so proud.
Yes, and probably at some point we will have him back, and he's going to go for even longer.
Yeah, probably. He'll be like, "How do I get this to 4 hours?"
I'm like, "Can we take a microphone and go to a restaurant?"
Oh God,
with him.
just do what we do at the restaurant,
which is
yeah. Okay. I'm going to give a shout out to my friend Julian, who was lost this week, who died. So just sending that out there. I know that I have folks listening to this who I work with and who used to work there.
Mm-hmm.
So, and thanks for listening.
Yes, thank you for listening, and we will be back talking to you again next month.
Woot! Welcome to the new season. I don't even think we said that.
No, this is a new season. You can tell because it's so different. We are much more learned and sophisticated.
We've changed so much. It's our character arc.
It's like Buffy. There is no character arc for the main character. None. Zip. Zero. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Mysteries, Monsters, and Mayhem.
Find us on Facebook and Instagram or at our website, mysteriesmonstersmayhem.com.
Please like, rate, and review, follow, and share wherever your favorite podcasts are downloaded.
Thank you for listening and supporting our podcast. We'll be back with more shenanigans.